You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2517, Chapter 2517, Chapter 541 The Great Pervert is Here, 3. Chapter 2517, Chapter 541 The Great Pervert is Here, 3. Old swindler, don't believe him. At this moment, Big Hairy Ball shouted again, I just went to the time future and took a look. There are at least 10 people who can live. He even said that there's less than 1 in 10. Swindler, there are more than 10 people who can live. I bet that what I saw is real. It was fine if he didn't say it, but when he said it, all the experts in the universe felt a chill in their hearts. This guy was really strong. How strong was the demigod devourer? Everyone wasn't really sure, but they knew one thing. The young demon emperor might not be able to defeat it. It said that it went to see the future, so maybe it really went to see it. Then it said. There were at least 10 survivors. What a joke. There were 3,600 survivors, and there were more than 20 invincible ones. Did this person not know what it meant to say that there was less than 1 in 10? It was not like there was only one survivor. The two half-emperors gave a bad omen, and for a moment, everyone's hearts were filled with gloom. On the human side, the great Xia King's expression also changed slightly. His grandson and great-grandson had all entered. The great Xia mansion had already suffered heavy losses previously. This time, once Xia Longwu and Xia Huyo fell in, everything that the great Xia mansion had sacrificed previously had been for nothing. Once he died, the entire great Xia mansion could be declared to be completely destroyed. He looked at the great Zhou King and transmitted his voice, Fortune teller, you can deduce the future. Do you think what they said is true? The great Zhou King shook his head. He said softly, that life emperor said himself that looking at the future is only one of the billions of possibilities. It doesn't mean anything. What he saw, what that demigod devourer saw, didn't mean anything. With great power, the future he saw could only be said to be more likely. However, it did not mean that it was the only possibility. Old Xia, you should understand this logic. I understand. The great Xia King said in a low voice, I don't believe in fate. If I believed in fate, I would have died a long time ago. It was impossible for me to attain the Tao, and it was impossible for me to establish the great Xia mansion. However, recently, there have indeed been too many changes. The great Zhou King was silent for a moment before he nodded and said, there have indeed been many changes. You should be more careful. In this era, the 10th tidal change has happened. It was the 10th time. In the first 9 times, the human race had not been wiped out. Some had won, some had lost, but they had not been wiped out. What would happen in the 10th time? Had the blessings of their ancestors been exhausted in this generation? Perhaps, they had really been exhausted. The ancient ruins were gone, and the 10,000 races were focused on them. The suppressive force could not be activated, and the half-emperor realm would not appear. In this era, would the human race still be able to endure until the heavenly battlefield closed down? The heavenly battlefield would open for at least 1,000 years, and at most 10,000 years before it closed down. 5,000 years was considered a normal period of time. At this point, it had only opened for 1,000 years. If one was lucky, it would close down very quickly. If one was unlucky, they would have to wait for a few thousand years. After a few thousand years, the human race might be gone. The Grand Xia King was also silent for a moment. Then, he looked at the white jade gate. At this moment, the trembling gradually stopped. However, the intense trembling just now had left behind a spatial rift. This meant that what everyone had seen was real. This thing was trembling. Just as the outside world was silent. Within the starry manor, the violent trembling also stopped. Suyu coughed up blood as he cursed in his heart. He knew that the other party seemed to be able to hear him. It was only him. Of course, the prerequisite was that he had already opened 360 yuan aperture. Once he sealed a few of the apertures, there would be no more reaction. Mountain Tai. When the trembling stopped, Suyu shouted once more, but there was no more movement. He could not hear the other party's resentful voice, and it seemed like the other party could not hear his voice either. Suyu heaved a sigh of relief. He was a little afraid, but also a little excited. I seem to have discovered some great secret. What is the name of this fellow who was killed? It doesn't matter. This fellow was very powerful, so powerful that it was frightening. It was possible that he had opened 720 great heavenly acupuncture points, an existence that had opened heavenly acupuncture points, and an existence that could kill the sun and moon in one breath. And this was even after death. For the time being, he would be addressed as Old Zhou, the one who had opened the heavenly cycle acupoint. Old Zhou had been killed by Tai Shan and turned into the Starry Manor. Now that he was dead, he harbored endless resentment toward Tai Shan. Once he opened the heavenly cycle acupoint, he would be able to communicate with the other party's resentment. It was fine to say anything else, but once he mentioned Tai Shan, the other party would go crazy. Is this the first floor or the entire Starry Manor? If it's the entire Starry Manor. Suyu took a deep breath. This was a good thing. He was unable to control the Starry Manor, but he could do one thing. When he encountered danger, he would shout Mountain Tai, and Old Zhou would riot. No matter how strong an enemy was, they would still be in a trance when faced with such a riot. He had to be distracted. If he were to suddenly erupt without any preparation, no one would be able to withstand it. Forget about taking the opportunity to kill the enemy, I can just run away. Tsk tisk. Suyu didn't have too many thoughts on his mind, nor did he have the mood to take control of the Xingyu residence or communicate with the resentment. What a joke. He was already dead, and all he could do was utter a few crazy words. If he were to communicate with Old Zhou, he would be courting death. He didn't want to attract any huge trouble. If this fellow were to die, he might be revived in the world of souls. Once his memories were restored. Even Suyu didn't dare to think about it. That fellow was simply too powerful. Of course, the person who had killed him was even stronger. Was the ancient era really that terrifying? It was so terrifying that after he died, countless undefeatable experts were unable to enter a mansion built from his corpse. Even half-emperors were unable to cross it. If nothing went wrong, this mansion in the cosmos might really possess the strength of an emperor. An emperor had been killed. I don't dare to think about it anymore. The more I thought about it, the more gossip there was. It seemed like humans were fighting against each other, and it might have been internal strife that led to their destruction in the ancient times. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2518, Chapter 2518, Chapter 541, The Great Pervert is Here. 4. Chapter 2518, Chapter 541, The Great Pervert is Here. 4. However, this starry mansion should have been built even earlier. After all, the starry mansion wasn't built later, but was built from the beginning. It had been used as the conference center of the 10,000 worlds since the beginning, and the headquarters of the parliament of the 10,000 races was here. This meant that Old Zhou had been killed a long time ago. Could it be a battle between two emperors? Suyu fell into deep thought. This was also possible. Could it be that there was more than one human emperor, but generations after generations, the previous human emperor and Old Zhou had seized the position of human emperor and killed Old Zhou? If that was the case, the previous human emperor was ruthless enough. He had killed people and even forged them into weapons. While Suyu was still thinking, Xia Huyo and Huang Teng, who were at the side, were stiff and covered in blood. They looked at Suyu as if they had seen a ghost. They looked at Su Yu, and Xia Huyo's jaw had fallen off. At this moment, he used all his strength to support it up, he said in fear, just now. It was scary, did you do it? Su Yu smiled and said, how could it be? What does it have to do with me? No, I heard you shout something, and then the world collapsed. Xia Huyo was shocked. Holy shit. It was too scary. That anger and pressure just now seemed to be much stronger than his great-grandfather, who was also the emperor of Great Xia. This was too terrifying. At this moment, they were still in the depths of their ear canals. If they went out to look, they would discover that the entire layer was really a heaven-shattering and earth-shattering one. Countless mountains were destroyed, and countless rivers and faults were broken. The sea swept through the heaven and earth. Waves surged into the sky, and cracks were everywhere. The entire person's world, the person who had been here the last time would probably not recognize him at all if he came again. It has nothing to do with me. Then what did you say just now? Xia Huyo's legs were still shaking. He looked at Su Yu suspiciously. It really had nothing to do with you. Su Yu smiled and said, I didn't say anything. I called out, Mount Tai. I was thinking about something. I was thinking about you and Huang Jiu. If the two of you succeed. Do you have to call me Master Lu, Old Mount Tai? Xia Huyo was suspicious. Was this for real? It seemed like it was called out like that. But. Su Yu had just finished shouting when there was a huge change. Not only that, Su Yu was so powerful, yet he was the first to vomit blood. To be honest, this shouldn't have happened. Because Su Yu was the first to suffer the impact. That furious sound wave impact. He didn't die, and that was because his Sea of Will was protected by the tombstone. Otherwise, his Sea of Will would have exploded. This time, he had gone too far. He only had some doubts and muttered casually. Who knew that after so many years of death, he still had such power? Was this the mark of hatred entering his body? How terrifying. Beside him, Huang Ting's face was also pale. They were still fine. At this moment, in the passageway, a person staggered over. His entire body was covered in blood. In his ear canal, it was actually much safer. Huang Jiu, who was outside, was covered by the pressure and anger. His entire body exploded under the pressure, and many of his bones were broken, his entire body was covered in blood. At this moment, he was coughing up blood as he entered. When he saw that there was blood at the corner of Su Yu's mouth, Huang Jiu felt less pain. This fellow was already injured despite being so perverted. Did you do it? Huang Jiu asked. Su Yu was speechless. It wasn't me. What does it have to do with me? Old Zhou did it. Why are you asking me one by one? I look like a villain. Seriously. The blood-lettered divine script appeared and absorbed all the blood in his body. White robe. Alright, he was still a wolf head until now. This time, he didn't wear a white robe, which made him look a bit rustic. When he regained his identity, he would definitely wear a white robe. Su Yu's left ear moved, and he quickly flew back from the platform. Opening the 360 yuan aperture again, he faintly heard that crazy sound again. Su Yu quickly closed an aperture. Troublesome. He hadn't heard it before, but this time, he tempered his ears, and now he could hear it all the time. Once he opened the 360 yuan aperture, he would be able to hear it. Troublesome. It seemed that this sound could last for countless years. If he heard it, he needed two conditions. First, he needed to open the 360 yuan aperture. Second, his ears had been tempered here. Otherwise, he would not be able to hear it. These two conditions were quite difficult. This place seemed peaceful. Once you did not know the correct way to operate it, once you walked onto that platform, the demonic sound would instantly penetrate your ears, your sea of will would explode, and your head would explode. Not everyone could temper their ears. Suyu let out a breath. Let's go. There's nothing good in this place. Let's go to the other side and take a look. There was another ear. After tempering it together, the eyes, ears, and nose were all tempered, leaving only the mouth. As for the belly button, it wasn't here either. How could there be a belly button in the human world? On the other hand, the 100 acupoints should be at the entrance to the second floor. Forget it, I'll take care of the 8 acupoints first. As for the belly button, if the Xingyu mansion is built entirely, it should be somewhere else, on another floor, or maybe on this floor, but it's hard to find. Suyu thought to himself as he walked out with a few others. When they came out, they were all stunned. They had really experienced the vicissitudes of life. Outside, the sea of ears was gone, so it wasn't a big deal. They flew out of the ear canal, out of the ear, and then looked around. The earth cracked, the mountains collapsed, and the entire human world seemed to have suffered thousands of attacks. It was completely reduced to ruins. Previously, it had been a beautiful landscape. But in the blink of an eye, it was gone. It was reduced to ruins. This was an incomparably vast expanse of land. Needless to say, the entire human world was in such a state. What Suyu didn't know was that at this moment, some of the survivors seemed to have gone mad as they flew towards the entrance to the second level. F***ck, there was no way they could stay on the first level. No matter how many benefits there were, no matter how many treasures there was no way they could stay there. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2519, Chapter 2519, Chapter 541 The Great Pervert is Here. Asks for a subscription, 5. Chapter 2519, Chapter 541 The Great Pervert is Here. Asks for a subscription, 5. First, the ERC riot attacked dozens of people, and dozens of people were smashed into powder. Then, the entire human interface was in a riot. Shui Yuan, ERC, Twin Dragon Gorge, and Tiankeng were all in a riot. At that moment, hundreds of explorers were killed by the sudden explosion. On the first floor, half of the thousands of people had gone to the second floor, and the remaining half were still on the first floor. Now, the remaining half, 500 to 600 people, and Suyu had killed 200 people, the riot caused another half of the remaining people to die. At this moment, the vast human world had always been the most populated place in the past. Now, less than 200 people were still alive, and they were all frantically fleeing into the distance. They couldn't afford to offend them. They had to flee. The second floor should be better than the first floor, right? It seemed like something big had happened on the first floor this time. Countless people were running and cursing at the same time, saying that they hadn't gotten any benefits. They had only been here for less than 2 days, and their parents had said that there were countless benefits, but the danger wasn't great. The main danger was what the others had said, it was all bullshit. Bullshit. How could there be any other danger? The others hadn't fought much, but in the end, it was all a natural disaster. Was this not dangerous? Are you kidding me? According to their parents, the first to third floors should be more careful. As long as they weren't killed by their opponents, they would be satisfied as long as they got some benefits. It would be very easy to be satisfied. However, at this moment, everyone was running and cursing at the same. At the entrance of the first floor into the second floor, the experts were still in fear. They looked at each other. No matter if it was the human race or the 10,000 races, they didn't have any desire to fight, so what was there to fight about? Run, we can't stay on the first floor. Someone said sadly, 3 people from my race entered and finally got a spot, but they didn't even see the benefits and 2 people died. It was 2F** King miserable. The other clans didn't say anything. They were all depressed. According to their thoughts, they would stay for 10 days on the first, second, and third floors to explore and search for treasures. They would leave exactly a month later. But now, it was only starting on the second day. There was no way to stay on the first floor. As they were talking, there was someone who didn't give up and said, "Maybe there's still a chance." At this moment, someone was extremely shocked and shouted, "It's coming again, run." In the distance, another huge wave surged into the sky. On the other side, the sea of ears erupted once again. Rumble. Countless huge waves swept out in all directions. At this moment, the expressions of those experts who had wanted to take advantage of the situation changed. Without saying a word, they all flew into the sky. Stop bullshitting. Picking up wool. Crazy, really crazy. The sea of ears once again erupted. They could only watch in the distance as some people ran in this direction in despair. In the end, they were instantly killed by the huge waves. Run. Quickly run. The survivors no longer took any chances. They ran. The first floor was in complete chaos. At this moment, on the second floor, suddenly, hundreds of people appeared. They were all from the first floor. Some people were still wondering about the tremors from before. The second floor had also been shaken, but there wasn't much change. It was just that the world was shaking, making everyone a little worried. In the end, many people instantly arrived on the first floor. Without asking, one wouldn't know. One question, very quickly, the news spread on the second floor. The world underwent a drastic change. Countless people died on the first floor, their eardrums disappeared, and mountains collapsed. Apart from them, those who didn't come up, could almost be considered to have been sentenced to death. There weren't many who survived. Even if there were, they were probably scared out of their wits by now. Out of over 1,000 people, less than 600 had reached the second level. As for the rest, they had all died after a few mishaps. Even if there were still some, it was still extremely rare. At the very least, there wasn't a large-scale gathering of people. On the second level, in a corner, the mishap on the first level was transmitted. There were some people gathered here, led by Wuxia, by Feng, and a few others. At this moment, Wuqi's expression changed as he said, "On the first floor, we haven't been able to find Huangtang and Xia Huyo. Huangtang's death is nothing, but Xia Huyo can't die." Not far away, Qin Fang did not ride the flying tiger this time. He crossed his arms and carried a spear on his back. He said with a speechless expression, "Huangtang won't die so easily. He probably went to find Xia Huyo. The Xia family has nurtured him extremely well. He won't be like you and leave without Xia Huyo." Wu Qi said coldly, "Stop picking on me. My mission is to escort my sister, not Xia Huyo." This was indeed her mission, arranged by her ancestors. Therefore, when she found Wu Lan, she immediately brought her to the second floor. She was about to go to the third floor to look for the Milky Way sand. As for Xia Huyo, the Xia family didn't specifically advise her. Huangtang was probably the protector arranged by the Xia family. Bai Feng couldn't be bothered with them. He frowned slightly as he looked into the distance. There was a drastic change that caused the sky to collapse and the earth to crack. There were countless deaths and injuries. Why did I think of my cute disciple the moment I heard this news? Could it be that he really came in? However, Suyu had come out of the ancient city that day. He had thought that Suyu hadn't come. However, upon hearing that there was a drastic change, he felt that this matter might have something to do with his good disciple. Thinking of this, Bai Feng could not help but send a voice transmission to Wu Lan. "You said that you met Suyu that day, and he was going to impersonate you?" Wu Lan glanced at him. She casually sent a voice transmission, "Teacher Bai suspects that the first layer of change is related to him." Don't suspect, it's him. Other than him, no one else would do such a thing. To kill several hundred people at once, other than him, who else could do such a thing? Who else could be so vicious? He is the most vicious person in this generation, and Bai Laoshi still doesn't know about it. It was strange that Bai Laoshi was still doubting him. Even Wu Lan was perplexed. Why would you doubt him? You should be more certain. But they said that it was caused by the upheaval in the world. Then why haven't there been any drastic changes in the past thousands of times? Bai Feng was speechless. How would I know about that? You mean that kid Suyu really came in? That's right. Wu Lan looked ahead and said, let's go to the third level. Everyone looked at her, but Wu Lan ignored them. Suyu, that pervert, was following behind them. They had almost killed everyone on the first level, and they were about to reach the second level. Perhaps he didn't know that they were here, but if they were to kill everyone indiscriminately, how unlucky would he be? It was such a big world, would Suyu deliberately go and look for them one by one? According to the situation on the first floor, that guy was killing everyone indiscriminately, and it was all-encompassing. Wu Lan didn't want to be killed by mistake. On the third floor, it probably wouldn't happen because she had told him. I'm going to the third floor to collect the heavenly river sand, so I should at least investigate it, right? With this in mind, Wu Lan urged everyone to leave as soon as possible. As for Xia Huyo and Huang Teng, what was there to worry about? They might just follow Suyu to get by. She knew that Suyu and Xia Huyo were in cahoots with each other previously. When they were in the Great Xia Manor, their relationship was quite good. Bai Feng was still puzzled. He sent a voice transmission, it's really Suyu. When Suyu came out of the city, you saw it too. Wu Lan had a strange look on her face. She looked at Bai Feng again and sent a voice transmission, aren't you simple? Just find someone to pretend to be him. No one is going into the city to investigate him. Are you kidding me? Who can pretend to be him? As Bai Feng said this, his face suddenly stiffened. Who could? With Suyu's bold personality, his words that could infuriate people to death, and his cheap temperament, not to mention, he knew someone similar. Lu Hong. His gaze changed. Yes, he didn't see this dog this time. Last time, Suyu had impersonated Lu Hong and went to Lu City. He had forgotten to ask where Lu Hong was. There must be a reason why Suyu suddenly impersonated Lu Hong. This meant that Lu Hong couldn't come out. At this moment, he suddenly came to a realization. Holy shit! The person in the ancient city was Lu Hong, and Suyu. He really came in. In front of countless invincible people, he came in. No wonder the first floor had become a slaughterhouse. At this moment, Bai Feng was completely enlightened. He instantly came to a realization and shouted, let's go to the third floor. His crazy disciple might soon come to the second floor. He might not be able to investigate the surroundings. He might be able to kill without discrimination. After going to the third floor, he knew that his group would go to the third floor, only then would they be safe. This time, Bai Feng and Wu Lan did not go against each other. They hurriedly looked for the entrance to the third floor. Both of them knew that there was a pervert on the first floor. And at this moment, on the first floor, Suyu's right ear had been tempered, and his face was filled with regret. There was no one there. He realized that there was no one on the first floor. My civilized mind was filled with hunger and thirst, but after flying for so long, I actually did not see a single person. Seriously, they all went to the second floor. Are they stupid? I'm almost done exploring the first floor. I'll leave after I'm done exploring. The second floor is so dangerous. Sigh. Suyu sighed. The guys on the first floor are too stupid. They're hiding here. I'll leave soon, so I won't come back to kill them. Now that I've gathered on the second floor. It's convenient for me. Then, I'll go up one floor at a time. P.S. This dungeon's treasure hunt isn't too important. The main purpose is to improve my worldview and decipher some ancient secrets. Don't talk about opening up chapters one by one. Just writing about treasure hunting, I can finish 9 floors in one chapter. It's meaningless. You're tuning into the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2520, Chapter 2520, Chapter 542 He Tu and Damiel. Chapter 2520, Chapter 542 He Tu and Damiel. The people on the first floor were all running towards the second floor. Su Yu was not in a hurry. He was not worried that if everyone ran away, the treasure would be snatched away. It did not exist. If they could not get it, they would never be able to get it. It was not the first time that the Starry Mansion had been opened. If some treasures were so easy to take away, they would have been gone thousands of years ago. Some treasures were waiting for the fated person or the smart person. Su Yu felt that he was a smart person. In other words, he felt that he was the fated person. The so-called fated person must have opened at least 360 heavenly cycles. Without opening the heavenly cycles, he was nothing. The Starry Mansion belonged to the human sovereign realm. The person who forged the mansion was definitely a human. Some things were left behind for the human race. This was left behind by the ancestors. The key was whether the human race could get it or not. Outsiders could forget about taking it away. The sinkhole. It was an incomparably huge sinkhole. One side of the sinkhole was slightly slanted. It wasn't obvious before, but as the entire human world shook, the sinkhole appeared. That slope was the tongue. That huge sinkhole was the mouth that opened. The surrounding cliffs were the lips. The large platforms at the bottom of the cliffs were the teeth. Previously, due to the dust and other things covering it, it did not look very similar. One could only see that it was a huge black hole that seemed endless. However, looking at it now, even Xia Huyo could tell that it was a mouth at a glance. An incomparably huge mouth. The few of them floated in the air. Xia Huyo took a look and could not help but feel a little cold as he said, "It's a little scary." Su Yu, could this be a living person? How could there be such a huge mouth? Beside him, Huang Jiu also frowned. Suddenly, he said, "Don't hover right above the sinkhole. Sometimes, there will be a powerful airflow that will sweep people into the sinkhole. Once they are swept in, almost no one will come out alive." Eaten. Xia Huyo shivered as he said, "Don't say that. Why do I feel that the Starry Sky Mansion is a little strange? This human interface, could it be a real human head? The more I look at it, the more it looks like it. At first, I didn't feel anything. I just felt that there were a few parts of this human interface that are similar to some parts of the human body. But now, it really looks like a face." Everyone knew that this was called a human interface. However, knowing was knowing. When you first entered, even if you looked at it from the air, there was nothing that looked too similar. It was just that the shape was similar. However, when the dust, sand, and stones were all sent flying, it was too scary to look down at the entire human face. Su Yu said playfully, "Isn't this just a face?" Someone broke his head. As he said that, Su Yu smiled and said, "Not necessarily. Maybe it's an eye shape. The head was bent by someone. Maybe it's a human body. An eye shape. The head was bent by someone, so a human face appeared. Was it possible?" Su Yu thought, maybe it was possible. If it was true, then the second floor was the neck, or the second and third floor were the necks. "Don't say it. I'm a little scared when you say it like that." Xia Huyo looked embarrassed. He really had goosebumps. After Su Yu said that, he felt that it was more and more similar, but, the Starry Mansion had 9 floors. The space of the 9 floors added together was probably bigger than the human realm. This was a person. Then they were all inside a person's body. Also, it was said that this was the ancient human emperor's mansion, the headquarters of the parliament of 10,000 races. Once it was built by a person, then the human emperor, the emperor of the sacred Tao, gave people the feeling that he was very savage, living inside a person's body. That did not conform to the expectations of the human race. Some humans felt that the ancient human emperor must have been a benevolent monarch. In fact, most of the cultivators were numbered. If they were truly benevolent, how could they unify the 10,000 worlds? It was impossible to unify the 10,000 worlds without killing. Su Yu did not bother with them anymore. He looked down at the sinkhole. It was dark, and it was indeed a little scary. If my guess is that I'm L-shaped, and my head is bent, then I can enter through my mouth. Can I actually enter the second level or higher through my throat? Su Yu thought to himself, forget it, I'll talk about it later. He quickly fell off the cliff and stood on a platform at the bottom of the cliff. Beside him was a pitch-black crater. This platform was actually a tooth. Su Yu was thinking, this tooth was more powerful than a carrier, right? The hairs on his nose could even become a carrier. The strongest part of the human body already had a tooth. This thing's sturdiness was beyond imagination. Su Yu's teeth, even without any tempering, could bite a Lingyun mountain in sea to death. Not to mention a peerless expert like old Zhou. Su Yu landed on the ground and stomped his foot on his teeth. He did not move at all and did not cause the slightest ripple. Only some dust flew in the air. Xia Huyo and the others also landed one after another. Looking at this row of ridiculously huge teeth, Huang Teng squatted down and knocked on it. Yuan Qi seeped into it and he sensed it for a while. He inhaled and said, it's extremely sturdy. If this is a real tooth, even if it isn't, it's made from a simulated tooth. If this thing is pulled out, it will be incomparably powerful. Su Yu smiled and said, don't even think about it. Pull it out. Pull my *s. It's already so difficult to pull out a hair, let alone a tooth. If you have such thoughts, you might as well go and find the scalp of the other party. Perhaps there are countless hairs, and pulling one out will be a carrier. Hundreds of thousands of carriers are waiting for you. The moment these words were said, the few of them were stunned for a moment. Then, Xia Huyo swallowed his saliva crazily and said, You're serious? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 25-21, Chapter 25-21, Chapter 542 He 2 and Dummy 2. Chapter 25-21, Chapter 542 He 2 and Dummy 2. Su Yu looked around, without turning his head, he said, what's not serious about it? Of course, not all the hair is fine, but with so much hair, it's normal for there to be dozens or hundreds of them. After all, it's been so many years, but in the Starry Mansion, no one seems to have seen a treasure land surrounded by countless giant trees, right? The hair was definitely very long. The key was that no one had seen it before. Or perhaps, this person did not have a scalp. Su Yu thought about it and decided to forget it. He would go back and look for it. If he could not find it, then forget it. The hair. If his eyebrows flew higher, it would be his forehead. If his forehead flew higher, it would be his scalp. Unfortunately, Su Yu did not see the scalp. When it reached his forehead, it would be the end of this world. Soon, Su Yu flew into the sinkhole, and the others followed him. At the same time Su Yu entered the sinkhole. In an incredibly dark and huge expanse cosmos. There were towering pillars that surrounded the entire expanse cosmos. At that moment, in this dark environment, he too knocked on the head of the dead spirit and said furiously, where did you bring me? Where is this? This isn't the world of the dead spirit. Where have I been teleported to? A strange place. He too was very serious. This damned place made him feel uneasy. Those huge pillars were extremely sturdy. Even he would find it difficult to destroy one of them. The key was that those pillars were alive. It was a terrifying place. As he was speaking, a huge pillar suddenly swept towards him. Who are you bullying? He too was furious. He struck out with his palm and a powerful aura of death spread out. He sent the pillar flying with his palm. The undead next to him was also extremely fast. He struck out with his fist and caused the other pillar to shake. He too did not linger and quickly shouted at the undead, "Let's go, you idiot. You've killed me." He was a little depressed. He too, was tricked by an idiotic undead. Where did I teleport to? Countless giant pillars. Every giant pillar would attack someone, and they were all very powerful. Even he himself would find it difficult to break them. Furthermore, there were so many of them that it was terrifying. If one of these pillars was pulled out, it could be used by a weak local soldier or a strong heavenly soldier. There were so many of them. It was terrifying. He too didn't have much interest in these things, including the most powerful pillars that could be used as carriers. In fact, he didn't have much interest in them. He didn't have any use for them, and the undead didn't have 3 reincarnations. Since they were all dead, how could he have 3 reincarnations? There was no past. And no future. At this moment, he too only wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. Damn it, if I don't go back now, what if my territory is occupied by someone else? To the undead, the most important thing was still the undead river. Other than that, there were very few treasures that were effective against them. In his territory, the undead river was a relatively safe and wide section. If he didn't go back now, it would be troublesome if someone thought he was dead and took his territory. Even if he could take it back when he went back, who knew if they would ruin his territory? He dodged the attacks of the giant pillars while turning to look at the undead. He too shouted helplessly, "Do you know how to get out?" Who was this damn guy when he was alive? He was quite powerful. The key was that he suddenly entered the tunnel and teleported to this completely unfamiliar territory. He too was a knowledgeable person. Even if he lost some memories, he still didn't have the slightest impression of this place. When he was alive, he shouldn't have been here before. Is there any place in the myriad realms that I haven't been to before? He too even started to doubt himself. Where in the world is this damned place? There's actually a place that I haven't been to. How strange. That undead was in a daze and didn't say a word. The memories of the newly awakened undead were still slowly recovering. There were very few memories, and they would be recovered bit by bit. However, the duration of this recovery might be tens of millions of years. However, to be able to recover from the river of undead meant that this person would gradually recover his memories. In the future, he would be similar to Star Moon and the others. When he too saw that he did not speak, or that he did not know what to say, he knocked his head again and said angrily, "Look at you, where did you put us? Damn it, that old ghost must be feeling better recently. No one is attacking him anymore." He was very angry. The old turtle was feeling better now. No one was attacking the passage anymore. He could do whatever he wanted. Without his suppression, the old turtle could probably leave the city at will now. The undead was still in a daze. However, after being knocked on the head a few times by the other party, it seemed that it was not quite used to it. It shook its head and ran with he too for a while. Suddenly, it said, "Go. Go up, you should be able to go up. Go up." He too looked at the densely packed giant pillars on top of him and felt a headache coming on. It was easy for him to say that. These giant pillars were about to form a formation. Under the continuous attacks, even he felt uncomfortable. He could go up and get out. He was powerful. After considering it for a while, he decided to forget it. I'll trust you one more time, you scamming idiot. If I can't get out, I'll suck you up and strengthen myself. The two undead spirits quickly rose into the air. Countless giant pillars attacked, and he too sent one flying with a palm strike. Soon, he flew all the way to the top of the space. With a loud bang, he too sent hundreds of giant pillars flying with a palm strike. He too was also panting heavily. At this moment, he looked down, he couldn't help but ask, why are there so many giant pillars like hair? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 25-22, Chapter 25-22, Chapter 542 He 2 and Dummy 3. Chapter 25-22, Chapter 542 He 2 and Dummy 3. Yes, his long hair was hanging down. As he too cursed, he looked up and passed through the giant pillar formation. He seemed to see something, a light. He too was overjoyed. Am I going out? The key is, where am I? Could it be, that this is the universe? Doesn't that mean that other than the undead passageway, there's another way out of the undead realm? If that's the case, why am I still fighting with the old turtle? I'll just take my men and leave from here. Of course, it's just a little dangerous. An ordinary undead sovereign might be killed, and even he wouldn't be able to withstand the countless pillars. Fortunately, the newly awakened fellow's combat prowess wasn't weak either. With his help, the two of them were able to arrive safely. Soon, he too brought the dazed undead along with him as they flew up along a huge pillar. As he looked down, he found it even more bizarre. From the looks of it, these pillars looked like human hair falling down from the sky. They were uneven. As they flew inwards, they felt as if they were stuck to his scalp. Well, in his eyes, they weren't scalps, but iron walls. Even if he were to slap down with his palm, that iron wall wouldn't be able to break through. He too had no choice but to continue flying upwards. The attacks were also increasing. As he too flew, he felt that the pillars were becoming sparse. Vaguely, he saw light. After a moment, he and Dummy passed through countless strands of hair and landed on a huge platform. It was not a platform, but the end of his forehead. At this moment, he too's expression became strange. He looked around and saw that huge pillars were falling from the huge platform. The pillars that attacked him earlier were all here. At this moment, he landed on the platform. There were no more huge pillars that attacked him. He too's expression changed. He looked at Dummy and said hesitantly, "You have been here before. This place. What the hell is this place?" As he spoke, he frowned and suddenly looked back. There was a thin film behind him. The light shield seemed to be a world wall. He walked forward and could vaguely see the situation on the other side. The death aura in his eyes intensified, and divine light emerged. At this moment, his eyes seemed to see through the thin film and saw the other side. His eyes flickered for a moment, and he found it familiar. What did he see? He saw two unbroken mountain ranges in the distance. May Mountain. He muttered, May Mountain. Yes, May Mountain. At this moment, he too's expression changed drastically. May Mountain. Then where am I? He quickly looked down and looked behind him. His heart was surging with a monstrous wave. I saw May Mountain opposite the realm wall, the May Mountain that stretched for hundreds and thousands of miles. F***ck. He too was shocked. What the F***ck? I'm in the Starry Palace. No, something's wrong. The Starry Palace has a level with May Mountain, where am I? The lower level? The basement? The Starry Palace has a basement. No, this is related to the Dead Soul Realm. He too's expression changed completely. Did I forget something? He wasn't an ancient powerhouse. He was the first human powerhouse to be revived, the first one to undergo the change of tides. However, he had the bloodline of an ancient powerhouse, so his bloodline power was very strong. At this moment, he was extremely shocked. He had been teleported from the dead soul's realm to the basement of the Starry Palace. What did this mean? It meant that the Starry Palace was connected to all the realms in the universe and the dead soul's realm. How terrifying was this? Of course, he also knew that the undead realm actually had a passageway in the Starry Palace. However, that passageway was very complicated, and it was open on the 7th floor. It was very difficult to get out, and it was restricted by the rules. But this didn't seem to be restricted by any rules. In other words, the passageway on the 7th floor was actually a prison cell, and it guarded the rules. Only when you were allowed out could you come out. If they told you to go back, you had to go back. And this place seemed to be a back door. An unguarded back door. He too's expression changed completely. So, if I were to enter the Starry Manor from here and then teleport away with the Starry Manor, would I be teleported back to the 10,000 worlds or the Dead Soul world? No matter what. Even if I was teleported back to the Dead Soul world, it was actually nothing. This meant that he wasn't restricted by the rules and could move freely in the Starry Manor. He too's heart was in turmoil. Suddenly, he looked at Suyu in a daze. He said in a deep voice, "You bastard, who are you? Did you teleport here unintentionally or on purpose?" The Dead Soul world actually has a passage to the Starry Mansion, a passage, terrifying. He too's expression changed again. 360 stars, 360 passages. This corresponds to the number of special passages in the myriad realms, this. Yes, the Starry Mansion seems to have opened recently. That means it was opened at the same time. Many thoughts appeared in his mind. The next moment, he suddenly said, "Suyu." He gritted his teeth. That bastard, he actually dared to provoke me last time. Did he come this time? Did he come? Suyu. He too suddenly laughed. His pitch-black face revealed pitch-black teeth. Did you come? I seem to have entered the Starry Mansion. Ha ha ha. He too laughed loudly and was incomparably delighted. He quickly looked at the dazed man and said, "Let's go to the Starry Mansion." The place he was at could be considered a basement. He too roughly knew where he was, his forehead. And those giant pillars were all hair. He actually had some thoughts in his heart, but he didn't dare to say it out loud. It was too terrifying. This was something that he had never considered before. You're tuning into the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 25-23, Chapter 25-23, Chapter 542 He Too and Dummy 4. Chapter 25-23, Chapter 542 He Too and Dummy 4. There really is hair. Moreover, it runs through the world of the dead. The world of the dead only looks a little like a human face. It doesn't mean that everyone thinks that it's a human face. The person who created it has some evil taste. However, when the hair appeared, he too was secretly shocked. Is this an evil taste? Was it necessary to create the hair as well? Just as he was thinking, with a bang, he crashed into the barrier. He too was stunned for a moment. He couldn't go through it. He frowned and struck out with his palm again. The barrier trembled slightly. I can't go out. It can't be. He thought for a moment and quickly thought of something. The Starry Mansion had a fixed entrance. This place might not be accessible. It's all right, I'm already here. I'll just look around. Soon, I'll be going in. He too chuckled. I actually arrived at the Starry Mansion. Looking at that dumbstruck guy again, this guy is really something. This means that this time, I'll be able to have a direct contact with the juniors from all over the universe. Especially Su Yu. You better be here, and you're still alive. You're really arrogant. The last time he provoked him, he blew up some of his lingering thoughts. Only after he blew them up did he mock him. He didn't even have the chance to scold him back. Just you wait. He began to look for a passage, preparing to enter the first floor. And at this moment, Su Yu would never have thought that this starry manor actually had a basement. For countless years, everyone only knew that this place had 9 floors, but no one knew that there was a basement. Moreover, there were 2 invincible undead in the basement now. Among them, there was one who had a small grudge with him. The last time he crushed the other party's grudge, Su Yu felt that he wouldn't be able to get out, but he had mocked him many times. It was precisely because he didn't know that Su Yu was quite relaxed. Invincible on the first floor. Invincible on the second and third floors. What was there for him to be afraid of? Thus, he remained calm. It was only the 9th floor. He couldn't go to the 9th floor, and he might not be able to go to the 8th floor. As for the 7th floor, I have plenty of time. Since I haven't gone to the 2nd floor yet, I'm not in a hurry at all. In his mouth, Su Yu was feeling a little nauseous. He could cut off any other part of the body and cut it off. But this mouth, could it be cut off as well? However, Su Yu soon discovered it. There was no need to go through so much trouble. However, it was still nauseating. In the depths of the sinkhole, there was a gust of strong wind circling. Su Yu tried it. He just needed to keep breathing. He exhaled and exhaled. He let the strong wind circle in his mouth and refine the entire mouth. It was simple, but more importantly, this was a mouth. Could this old Zhou have bad breath? Could this gush of wind be his breath? In other words, I'm sucking his breath. Fine. I accept it. Earwax is a precious treasure, so what's there to be unable to tolerate? He didn't even look at Xia Huyo and the others. All he was missing was to lie on the ground and suck on it, and he was just short of kissing the other party's big tongue. How disgusting. Of course, there was still a pool of clear spring in the depths of the sinkhole. Su Yu had tried to collect the spring that looked like a supreme treasure several times, but he couldn't stand it. Forget about the earwax, forget about inhaling. This clear spring. It was probably saliva. He was still hesitating, but Xia Huyo said hurriedly, Su Yu, quickly go and collect it. This is the most famous treasure in the world, the imperial saliva. Beside him, Huang Jiao also explained, this thing is even better than the holy spring in the blood plains. A drop of it can revive a person's flesh and bones. Aren't you injured? Take a few drops and your physical injuries might be healed. I'd rather die. Su Yu snorted. This is saliva. You actually want me to eat saliva? And it's something that has been dead for countless years. I'm not eating it. Forget it, I'll just collect it. This thing is a good thing. At most, I'll sell it to someone else. No one else will know. Speaking of which, the dragon clan seems to have ambergris. It's said that it was cultivated by the dragon's saliva. Everyone likes it. Why can they accept dragon saliva? And bird's nest, they can also accept it. Why can't they accept old Zhou's? When such an expert was alive, his entire body would be filled with fragrance, right? With some messy thoughts, Su Yu collected all of the clear springs. As expected, the energy contained within was extremely shocking. It really did have a holy flavor. Go to the 3rd floor to look for the smiley face lotus. Eat the lotus root to recover my body. If I can't find it. Su Yu looked at the clear spring in his storage ring. If he couldn't find it. Cough cough, he would say it again. It was just saliva. Cough, cough, let's look at it again. There's no rush. There are many opportunities in the starry manor. If he was really anxious and needed to recover his physical body immediately, then he could look at the situation and make a decision. He closed his eyes and made up his mind. What was there not to eat? Su Yu had given himself a warning beforehand. There were countless people in the world who couldn't even eat this thing even if they wanted to. As he thought in his heart, at this moment, Su Yu had also completed the transformation of his mouth aperture. At this moment, he could not find his belly button, so he could only go to the entrance of the first and second floor. That should be by Hui, right? At this moment, Su Yu also felt the changes in his 7 apertures. The strength of his head was secondary. The key was that at this moment, he felt as if his life level had risen. It was as if he was no longer an ordinary person. Although he was no longer an ordinary person, at this moment, Su Yu felt that this head of his could be kept alive even if it was cut off alone. Perhaps he could still live for a very long time. He was powerful, but his improvement was not obvious. The one who had the most obvious improvement was actually Xia Huyo. Not long after hanging out with Su Yu, that fellow's physical body had already completed 24 casts. Terrifying. However, there were really a lot of treasures in this place. With just a few random items, he was able to complete 1 cast. In just a few attempts, he had already completed 24 casts. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 25-24, Chapter 25-24, Chapter 542 He 2 and Dummy 5. Chapter 25-24, Chapter 542 He 2 and Dummy 5. Xia Huyo cultivated the Xia family's inherited cultivation technique, and the heaven-cleaving blades body forging technique also had a total of 36 casting techniques. According to the 36 casting calculations, Xia Huyo had also entered the 6th level of the soaring cloud and was about to enter the 7th level. Perhaps after eating an earwax, he would be able to enter the 7th level. This speed was already extremely fast. As for Huang Teng, he was about to complete a metamorphosis and enter the 7th level of the soaring cloud. On the other hand, Su Yu's strength had actually increased and he had obtained many treasures. However, there were no changes to his physical body. He was still in the initial stage of the first transformation of Ling Yun and had not completed the metamorphosis. I need a cultivation technique. Su Yu thought to himself. Previously, he had seen some circulation of cultivation techniques. As for whether this cultivation technique belonged to old Zhou or the person who created the starry mansion, Su Yu was not too sure. However, he didn't see it all. The divine aperture isn't complete yet, the divine aperture should still be released, but the problem with my physical body really needs to be resolved. Otherwise, if it becomes messy in metamorphoses, it will affect the strength of my physical body too much. Cultivation technique. Perhaps, he could take advantage of the fact that his physical body was injured to try it out. Otherwise, if he were to be healed and injured again, he would have to spend even more money to treat his injuries. The injuries on his body were quite serious now. If he were to get injured again, it would only be so. If the regeneration of his body could maintain his body from collapsing, it would be fine as long as his foundation was there. Out of the 360 acupuncture points, Su Yu had roughly seen about 250. In fact, there was a pattern to the cultivation technique as well. As long as it was symmetrical, Su Yu would be able to connect all of the more than 300 acupuncture points. However, for a small number of them, he would have to verify it over and over again. There might not be only one type of Heaven's Path divine art, and it might not necessarily be the same as the others. As long as I can operate it smoothly, I can treat it as a whole to temper my apertures and complete the metamorphosis. As for its might, that's secondary. The might of the cultivation technique wasn't too great. For the same cultivation technique with 36 apertures, some of them had a good utilization rate, allowing them to exert greater might than the same cultivation technique with 36 apertures. Even if they were the same cultivation technique with 36 apertures, the order in which they operated the cultivation technique was different, the power of a cultivation method might be different. To be able to circulate it and not harm oneself, that was a cultivation method. My current goal is to circulate it. As for the power, I can make adjustments in the future. After refining the mouth aperture, Suyu thought again. Since this was the head, there should be an extremely important aperture in this place. Glabella aperture. That was the aperture that the demon race had grasped. Suyu's eyes moved slightly, and he suddenly pointed to the other side of May Mountain and said, "The exit is over there." "That's right." Huang Jiao looked at him and said, "Didn't you ask once before?" "That's not right." Suyu thought to himself. Previously, he had pointed to that side, but previously, he had actually said the 100 acupoints aperture. But previously, he had taken a detour to look over there, and when it reached his forehead, he had reached the end. The 100 acupoints weren't there, they were at the center of his brows. They entered the second level from the center of his brows. The center of his brows. Suyu muttered. If that was the case, he might be able to check how the center of his brows acupoints operated. There were 3 acupoints that were more difficult and asymmetrical. The center of his brows, the sky connecting aperture, and the spine aperture of the celestial race. Knowing how these 3 acupoints operated, in fact, he could roughly deduce the cultivation method. The center of the brows, the spine, the heavenly acupuncture point. Suyu muttered and went to check the operating pattern of the center of the brows. And he suddenly looked at the heavenly acupuncture point and said in a deep voice, "There might be a door in this place." The 3 of them looked at him in surprise. Where did the door come from? It's that kind of door. Suyu was talking about the door of the special passage. He suspected that the 360 doors had all returned to this place at this moment. Each of them returned to their respective positions in the apertures. Perhaps, that was the manifestation of the apertures. Therefore, there might be a door in each of the 360 acupuncture points. It was a door that had left. However, he had never seen it. It could be that it had disappeared into the void. Or it could be that they would only gather together when they left. He had yet to thoroughly investigate the secret of the Starry Sky Mansion. There was no rush. He would come layer by layer. Suyu quickly said, "Go to the entrance. Go to the second floor and take a look. You're not going to explore anymore." Xia Huyo could not bear to leave the first floor. There's still a treasure ground on the first floor. Suyu waved his hand and said, "I'm not going. Those places you mentioned might just be some pores. It's meaningless. They're all trash." "All right then." Xia Huyo was speechless. Trash. Earwax was trash, nose hair was trash, and saliva was trash. Didn't you still collect them all? Looking at those big teeth again, Xia Huyo sighed and said, "This thing can't be knocked down. Otherwise, if it were knocked down, I think it would be no problem to use it as a heavenly weapon or a carrier. If you want to die, that's more like it." Suyu was speechless. This old Zhou still had the instinct to bite you to death. Speaking of which, Suyu looked at the teeth on both sides of the cliff. If it was really knocked out, they would all be treasures. What a pity. Could old Zhou close his mouth? As he thought about this, he grabbed a few of them and said, "Let's go. Fly further away. This place is dangerous." Dangerous? The few of them were surprised. How could there be any danger? Suyu ignored them. "I said there would be danger." After flying for some distance, Suyu suddenly let go of an aperture that he had sealed previously. At this moment, he heard an angry roar again. The roar attacked him. Fortunately, Suyu was now prepared and was not greatly affected. After opening his apertures, Suyu waved his hand and blocked Xia Huyo and the others. Then, he said in a low voice, Mountain Tai. Boom! Mountain Tai. The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The angry roar was heard again and shook the world. In the distance, the two sides of the sinkhole suddenly merged together. They gritted their teeth and with a crack, the void was crushed. It was extremely cold. Su Yu was shocked and quickly sealed his apertures. These chain reactions gradually stopped. And the merged teeth loosened once again, revealing the sinkhole. Su Yu sucked in a breath of cold air. Can this draw invincible to the first level? Holy shit. With this bite, even if invincible didn't die, he would at least be heavily injured. The speed was too fast. And at this moment, Xia Huyu and the others were also extremely surprised, but the commotion wasn't too big. Once Su Yu sealed his acupoints, all the commotion was gone. They turned back to take a look. The sinkhole was still the sinkhole. There was no difference, the only difference was. Above the sinkhole, there were some spatial cracks. Xia Huyo said with lingering fear, Su Yu, you're still the best. How did you know that there would be spatial cracks? It's indeed dangerous. Su Yu smiled. Nonsense, of course I know. The danger in your eyes was all because of me. No, it was all because of old Zhou. This fellow's instincts were still there. With just this mouth, it would not be difficult to bite the sun and moon to death. It might even be possible to bite the invincible to death. Let's go. Su Yu swiftly flew away with the others. At this moment, he too's face was solemn. Danger. He had suddenly felt danger just now. Forget it, we'll talk about it later. There seemed to be an unforeseen event on the first level. It looked so dangerous. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2525, Chapter 2525, Chapter 543, Wherever You Go, You Die L. Chapter 2525, Chapter 543, Wherever You Go, You Die L. At the entrance of the second floor. It was a huge vortex. Su Yu rushed over with a few people. He frowned slightly and looked around. It was really the location of the glabella aperture. We're going up. Xia Huyo asked, are we going up now? Su Yu ignored him. Instead, he quickly rose into the air and looked around the vortex. At this moment, he was a little hesitant. How should he obtain benefits from the glabella aperture? How should he refine it? In other words, how should he find out the way this aperture operated, which apertures were related to it, and how should they be related? This was something that he had not seen before. After knowing the operating methods of a few special apertures, the rest would be much easier to do. Brow space, operating. Su Yu's heart moved slightly. Suddenly, he extended his hand and grabbed towards Huang Jiao and the others. Xia Huyu was slightly stunned. He did not say anything. Huang Jiao and Huang Teng's expressions changed slightly. However, Su Yu did not give them a chance. He extended his hand and a few of them fell into a misty space. Su Yu did not bother about them. He trapped them within and carefully observed the vortex. A moment later, Su Yu opened the ceiling acupuncture point. Mountain Tai. Su Yu let out a low cry. The world once again rotated. Perhaps he had heard it a couple of times today. At this moment, old Zhou was very angry. His entire body was in an intense turmoil. As for Su Yu, voices kept ringing out in his mind. Tai Shan, why do you want to kill me? I refuse to accept this. I refuse to accept this. Blood flowed out of Su Yu's mouth, but he did not care. He allowed the voice to assault him. At that moment, he was carefully observing the acupoint between his brows. With old Zhou's upheaval, the cultivation technique would definitely be activated. He wanted to see how this person would activate the acupoint between his brows. As expected, with old Zhou's uprising, the acupoint between his brows rapidly spiraled. Large amounts of yuan qi gathered, causing the entire passageway to tremble. Far away, outside the barrier, he too felt as if he had seen a person. There was more than one person. There were several people. He had never seen Su Yu before, but he had heard Su Yu's voice. At that moment, he could not figure out what was going on. At that moment, he felt some fear in his heart. What a powerful fluctuation. What was going on? The starry mansion was in a riot. Was it because the forging material was a person? He did not dare to think too deeply about it. At this moment, he also did not dare to move. There seemed to be a huge problem within the first level. It was very dangerous. It was better not to go out. After the riot had stopped, he would go in and take a look. At this moment, he was also filled with curiosity towards the starry mansion. He had been here before, but it was not like this before. The dazed person beside him didn't move at all. He was also looking at the situation within the barrier. As he looked, his eyes were dazed and a little absent-minded. At the same time, in the starry sea, in the myriad realms of the heavens, the white jade gate was once again in an uproar. This was the third time. The first time, it was fierce, the second time, it was slightly weaker, the third time. This time, it was continuously in an uproar. Each and every one of them was undefeatable, and their faces were extremely gloomy. Every time there was a riot, more or less a few people would die. The first time was the most, and the second time might have been an accident or a coincidence. In any case, a few people had died at that time, and now, in the third riot, there was a crack in the passage. This meant that more people had died. Damn it! The ones who died were not weaklings, but top-tier sun and moon experts. In the distance, Dao King had a cold expression on his face. He was no longer mad. Out of the 13 spots, 11 people had entered. 7 people had died. This was his luck. There were still 4 people left. This luck, he felt that the entire world was targeting him. It was too detestable. There are still 3,080 people left, it's still alright. Someone muttered. It was still alright. There were only around 500 people who had died. 2 days were almost over. It was still alright, but there were only around 200 people who had died in 1 day. Nearby, some of the invincible experts were speechless. This was called not bad. Sigh. This time, God knows what had happened. The Starry Manor had been in a riot, and everyone was very frustrated. If this continued, all of them would die, and it would be difficult for everyone to bear such a loss. The 7th floor of the Starry Manor. At this moment, the battle was ongoing, and a large number of experts were gathering in this direction. Xia Longwu killed a sun and moon with a slash of his saber, exhaled, and quickly fled. Fortunately, the Starry Manor was in a commotion, or else it would have been surrounded by the invincible experts of the 10,000 races. As he fled, Xia Longwu observed his surroundings. The 7th level was very dangerous. Many experts were here, and there were more than 20 invincible experts. The 9-leafed heavenly lotus that everyone was looking forward to could be vaguely seen. It was very obvious that it was in the void, slowly blooming. However, if one went there, one would not be able to touch it, nor would one be able to catch it. According to what Xia Longwu knew, this thing had to wait. Only when it completely bloomed would it bloom and turn from an illusion into a real one. Right now, all parties were cleaning up the miscellaneous fish. Some people sealed off the 7th level and didn't allow anyone else to enter the 7th level. In the distance, a great battle broke out. Xia Longwu turned around and glanced at it. It seemed to be that person from the Zhu family. Zhu Tianfang. This fellow was also very powerful. Xia Longwu didn't pay much attention to it and quickly retreated. This time, 4 unrivaled experts had arrived. Xia Longwu, Zhu Tianfang, Zhou Polong, and Qin Zhen. There were also quite a few experts from the other clans. Xia Longwu calculated that there were probably around 22 of them, or even more. Furthermore, there might be some old fellows below the 7th floor, but it was possible that they were 3 incarnations. However, what he knew and what he saw were mostly 3 incarnations descending. If one did not have 3-in-1 bodies, there was a high chance that one would die in vain. With so many unrivaled beings here, having a 3-in-1 body would only be slightly stronger than a quasi-unrivaled body. If one encountered an unrivaled body, it would not take much effort for one to be hacked to death. While he was fleeing, a long spear stretched across the sky in the distance. Qin Zhen's furious shout rang out, "Immortal race, F*CKU immortal. I will stab you to death with my spear." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 25-26, Chapter 25-26, Chapter 543, Die Wherever You Go To. Chapter 25-26, Chapter 543, Die Wherever You Go To. On the other side, Qin Zhen was fighting with an invincible immortal. Xia Longwu glanced at him and didn't bother about it. Qin Zhen was quite strong, but he was a little unlucky. Xia Longwu could sense that he had fought 6 times in less than 2 days. Under normal circumstances, there weren't many direct fights between invincible immortals, but this guy was good. He had won 30% of the battle on the 7th floor. As he thought about this, Xia Longwu frowned slightly. This time, the tremor was exceptionally long. After a long time, the violent tremor finally stopped. Everyone was suspicious. How exactly did this tremor come into being? Several times. And at this moment, Suyu kept vomiting blood. He got used to it after vomiting. It was nothing. It was just old Zhou Guang's roar. It had impacted his sea of consciousness. Fortunately, it was covered by the tombstone. Although it was a little uncomfortable from the impact, it was still bearable. At this moment, a flame symbol rose from between his eyebrows. Under old Zhou's anger, the space between his eyebrows was rapidly operating. Suyu finally noticed something strange. He carefully observed and continued to spit out blood. It was nothing. It was nothing to be injured. This time, he had to understand the space between his eyebrows. A moment later, the space between his eyebrows was operating. It was Suyu's own space between his eyebrows. The space between his space was operating, and it was connected to the other space. On his body, one space after another lit up. 250 space between his eyebrows started to light up, 260 space between his eyebrows, 270 space between his eyebrows. These space between his eyebrows started to move rapidly. Suyu was just doing a simple experiment and started to adjust his space between his eyebrows. Under normal circumstances, he would need at least a day to move all 360 space between his eyebrows. At this moment, Suyu took the initiative to activate these space between his eyebrows. As he started to move, his speed was really fast. When the acupuncture points were activated, they must be corresponding. Usually, if one knew one would know two. Very soon, 320 acupuncture points were lit up. Pooh! A mouthful of rich blood gushed out, and one of the acupuncture points started to shake. Suyu's face changed slightly, and instantly turned pale. Something's wrong. Suyu shouted in a low voice. Wrong, the acupuncture points that he had just deduced were activated incorrectly. It did not operate like this. At this moment, he did not care much anymore. He took out a drop of emperor saliva and was just about to swallow it, when he was suddenly stunned. Swallow my A*S, just apply it on the outside. At this stage, why did he have to swallow it? Su Yu cursed in his heart. He was really brainless. He had almost forgotten about this. A drop of saliva, no, Emperor saliva quickly landed on his physical body. The acupoint that was about to explode just now instantly recovered to its full state. Not only that, Su Yu's physical body, which was originally heavily injured last time, at this moment, a pure energy seeped into his body. In the blink of an eye, more than half of Su Yu's injuries had recovered. Su Yu was secretly shocked. What a powerful effect. His body was comparable to the sun and moon, yet he had recovered more than half of his injuries in an instant. This thing did not seem to be any weaker than the demonic god fruit. In fact, it was even a little stronger. The main problem was that, he had taken a whole pool of it. There were a few thousand drops, right? How terrifying. Su Yu sighed in his heart and quickly adjusted his previous acupuncture point. He had just operated it wrongly and almost exploded his acupuncture point. He adjusted it again. Now, he did not have the time to find someone else to try it. Moreover, no one had opened 360 acupuncture points, so he could only do it himself. This time, he adjusted it for a while. A moment later, his glabella acupuncture point was connected. Su Yu immediately heaved a sigh of relief. It was done. The aperture was still lit up. Very soon, it circulated to his spine. With a loud bang, Su Yu once again spat out a mouthful of blood. His spine was exploding. Su Yu quickly dripped the Emperor's saliva on his body to restore his ruptured spine. His expression changed slightly and he quickly stopped the circulation. No. The spinal aperture could not be connected smoothly. There was a problem. This could not be tried carelessly. Before he found the trick, if he tried carelessly, it would easily blow up his entire body. Su Yu sealed one of the orifices and stopped the vibration. With a wave of his hand, in the distance, Xia Huyo and the others opened their eyes and looked at Su Yu. At this moment, Su Yu was still a wolf head. However, this wolf head appeared somewhat weak and pale. There seemed to be a bloody hole in the center of his brows. Xia Huyo knew what Su Yu was trying to do. He did not care about what he did not show him just now. He frowned and said, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." At that moment, the first layer was quiet. Su Yu looked at the vortex again and took a deep breath. "Let's go up." It was almost done. The operation of the space between his eyebrows should be correct. He had just connected more than 300 acupuncture points, so there was almost no problem. If he found a few more corresponding acupuncture points, he would be able to complete the heavenly cycle technique. Once he completed it, the 9 transformations of his physical body might land in the starry mansion. The 9 transformations of his physical body had been completed, and a combination of the mountain and sea acupoints. Su Yu suspected that he might be able to complete it in an instant. Of course, he wasn't sure about that yet. If everything went smoothly this time, he might soon be able to step into the peak of the mountain and sea realm. He went up. Xia Huyo looked at the first level and sighed. It's only been 2 days, and there's not a single person left on the first level. I heard that in previous years, the first level had the most people. Now, there might still be people on the entire first level, but they were pitifully few. Perhaps they were all hiding somewhere. If they weren't careful, they would die. The entire first level was almost ruined by Su Yu. Su Yu said that he wasn't the cause of the commotion, but Xia Huyo had to believe him. It would be strange if he wasn't. Then let's go to the second floor. He didn't have any objections. He would eat meat with Su Yu first. When Su Yu went to the higher floors, he might not go. Su Yu didn't say anything more. He flew through the air and instantly flew towards the vortex. Xia Huyo and the others hurriedly followed. When they disappeared into the passage, a barrier was opened in the distance. He too came out with a blank expression. He too glanced at the area between his brows but didn't pay much attention to it. What he was more curious about was this place. Why did such a huge change happen? You're tuning into the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 25-27, Chapter 25-27, Chapter 543, Wherever You Go 3. Chapter 25-27, Chapter 543, Wherever You Go 3. Idiot, do you know what's going on? He too asked. The stunned undead did not say a word. Their eyes were confused. Due to the loss of memory, they could not remember many things. He too was helpless. Idiot undead. It was good that he was not an idiot. It was also difficult to trick him into becoming a fighter. It feels like there's no one else on the first floor. He too smiled. No one was good, but he could investigate. He and Dummy were both extremely powerful. At this moment, the two of them were walking in the void and investigating everywhere. A moment later, he too walked to the center of the blood plains and sighed. In the past, he seemed to have come here and taken some holy springs. Now, he was here again. Unfortunately, he was no longer a living person. My ancestor was also in existence in the eighth heaven in the past. After sighing, he too saw that he was in a daze and did not say anything. He smiled and said, "You don't understand, right? The starry mansion is divided into 9 levels. The human emperor lives on the 9th level. The 8th level is where some peerless experts live. My ancestor was a human king of the ancient human race. Do you know what a human king is?" He looked at him in a daze. After a long while, he said dryly, "Human king. Dao Merge, peak of the Dao Merge." He too wasn't surprised. He had more or less recovered some of his memories. He chuckled and said, "That's right, a peak of the Dao Merge. According to the current classification, he's the strongest person among the half-emperors. It's a pity that our ancestor died. We don't know if he's in the dead spirit world or not. Even if those old fellows from the ancient era die, they won't be able to recover so easily. Therefore, this starry sky mansion is fated with me. It's a pity. When I entered that year, I didn't get many benefits. I couldn't go up to the 8th floor, and the gatekeeper on the 8th floor refused to let me in." After saying this, he sneered, "That old fellow from the heaven hunting pavilion is really living. I heard that he has his own mansion on the 8th floor. It seems that that fellow can't go back now. He's floating outside all day long." While he was wandering, he regarded himself as the master. He explained to Dummy with a smile, "Do you know the master of the heaven hunting pavilion? It's the heavenly Marquis Jian. His status is actually lower than my ancestor. My ancestor is one of the human kings and one of the important figures in the heavens. The heavenly Marquis Jian is even lower. However, speaking of which, his status is a little higher than the old turtle. The old turtle is only an ancient spirit-suppressing general. However, the old turtle is very powerful, so he can't be bothered to fight for it. Otherwise, the spirit-suppressing Marquis won't have a problem." He was dumbfounded. He too had nothing to do, so he went around to investigate. He smiled and said, "I don't know the ancient level." "Aren't you an ancient undead? However, your strength isn't weak. If you aren't an ancient undead, could it be that you are from my batch?" In the ancient times, the human emperor was revered. After that, there were half-emperors and human kings. In terms of status, they were on the same level as the half-emperors. After that, there were the great marquises. The status of the heaven overseeing marquis wasn't bad. This fellow might have the highest status since the ancient times, but when the ancient times really did recover, he was the first to be finished. This fellow is the heaven overseeing marquis. He didn't manage to fulfill his duties as the heaven overseeing marquis. Back then, when he was seeking refuge, he destroyed the heaven hunting list. If he really returned to the ancient times, he would have been killed long ago. He quickly arrived at the Twin Dragon Gorge and casually turned a little fellow who was hiding there into a dead spirit. That divine race expert who had managed to avoid danger with great difficulty turned into a dead spirit in the blink of an eye and followed behind him. He too was too lazy to say anything. This is the Twin Dragon Gorge, the position of the nostrils. If this place is really humanized, that would be too terrifying. He too rubbed his chin. I've never heard of anyone who was killed in the ancient times and forged into a starry mansion. Could it be that it's just similar? He couldn't figure out the situation either. As he too spoke, he said strangely, vaguely, "It seems like someone is calling me." "Did you hear it?" He looked at him blankly with a strange look and said dryly, "No. No." He too frowned and muttered, "No. Sigh, a person is dead. Maybe that's how it is. The senses aren't sharp anymore." When he was alive, he had opened 360 yuan apertures. Suyu didn't know this, but Suyu had guessed it before. Because he too could also practice the reversal of yuan apertures. It seemed that he had reversed the aura of death and released the dead. But that was when he was alive. Everything that happened in life had become a thing of the past. The past was gone. Naturally, everything was gone. Everything had to start from the beginning. The undead did not care about these things. He too could vaguely hear some sounds, but they were not real. This made him even more curious. What had happened on the first level? Soon, he brought Dummy and the weak undead into the Twin Dragon Gorge. Countless twining dragon trees swept towards him. However, compared to the giant pillar on his scalp, this nose hair seemed a little weak. His vision blurred, and Suyu appeared on the second floor. Someone said in surprise, "There are people on the first floor. Are they from the Demon Wolf clan? They're not dead yet. Maybe they've looted a lot of treasures." Suyu couldn't be bothered to open his eyes. He casually threw out a book and opened his eyes again. 6 Lingyun experts and a mountain and sea expert instantly disappeared into the book. People who blocked the entrance to kill people and seize their goods. Such people were very common. The first level had great changes, but there were also great opportunities. Now, most of them had come up. Perhaps there were still some living people down there. These people were guarding this area to kill people and seize their goods. Suyu wasn't polite to them. Regardless of whether there were humans among them or not, if they were planning to kill him and seize his goods, then he would kill them. It didn't make any difference whether they were humans or not. He didn't seem to see any humans either. Perhaps the humans were being targeted again. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 25-28, Chapter 25-28, Chapter 543, Wherever You Go, You Die For. Chapter 25-28, Chapter 543, Wherever You Go, You Die For. When Xia Huyo and the others opened their eyes, there was nothing left. They heard it too, but when they opened their eyes, there was nothing left. They thought they were hearing things, but when they saw the book in Suyu's hand was taken back, they were shocked. They were not hearing things. They were dead. They were killed by Suyu in an instant. In the outside world, someone frowned. 7 people had died. What floor had they died on? These people were probably in the 2nd or 3rd floor. However, 7 deaths was still within their limits. If they encountered a mountain and sea lord, they could be killed in an instant. There was a difference between 1 floor and hundreds of floors. Not only were the 7 of them dead, there were also dead people on the 1st floor. The remaining survivors on the 1st floor were encountered by He Tuesday. He did not kill them, but simply transformed into a dead spirit. In any case, he did not seem to be restricted by the rules in the Starry Mansion. When he walked out of the tunnel, he would actually be restricted by the rules. He was not a random person. Otherwise, the starry moon would have forcefully reversed Su Yu. Another 20 dead. Invincible sighed. Coincidentally, there were only 3,000 left. 1/6 of them had died. Someone laughed. The previous changes eliminated some weaklings. Most of the strong ones are still alive. Don't be so pessimistic. It's normal for weaklings to die when they enter. Not many strong ones had died before. Only a few sun and moon had died. It was still okay. Most of them were soaring in the air and Ling Yun. This is the second level. Su Yu instantly killed those fellows. He looked around and saw that the second level and the first level were different again. Not only were they different, they were completely different. The entire second level was like a land of lava. There were flames everywhere. There was a land of lava everywhere. There was blood and fire everywhere. Huang Jiu said sullenly, "The second floor is the flaming mountain." Legend has it that in the ancient times, a blood-fire demon expert and a fire spirit expert of the 5 elements race fought here and left this world of the flaming mountain. Su Yu couldn't help but laugh. It's just the blood vessels on the neck. It's as if it's real. There's even a battle between ancient experts. What nonsense. He took a look. Although he couldn't see any signs and there was no comparison between the first floor and the second floor, just as Huang Jiu had said, it was indeed a world of fire. However, with a single look, Su Yu could deduce that. With a single glance, Su Yu could tell that the ravine-filled magma was formed from blood vessels. There were more blood vessels on the neck. It was considered normal for such signs to appear. Huang Jiu didn't say anything else. According to what Su Yu had said, there was indeed a possibility that this level was the neck, but no one dared to think about it. Because it was very terrifying. An incomparably powerful expert from ancient times was killed by the human emperor. The human emperor lifted the other party's legs and stabbed him heavily into the ground. His head was broken, and his hair was inserted into the world of souls. The more they thought about it, the more terrifying it became. Of course, they hadn't thought about the hair yet because they hadn't seen it. Su Yu didn't care about them. He was thinking about his own matters. First level, Kaoyuan. Second level, Qianjun. Qianjun wasn't difficult. It was just enlightenment. As long as the enlightenment was enough, it would be enough. Opening some acupoints, strengthening some qi and blood, and laying a foundation with essence and blood, this was the Qianjun realm. Was the second level related to the Thousand Jun realm? In treasure hunting, one had to find good treasures. One couldn't just take whatever they saw, and sharpening a knife wouldn't delay the work of chopping firewood. Su Yu wasn't in a hurry either. The treasures on the surface weren't something that one could get, and they were all in the hands of others. If one wanted to find them, one had to find something that no one could see. Mountain Tai. Su Yu opened his sealed acupoints and casually shouted. His voice wasn't loud, and he dealt with it for a while, but he didn't let Xia Huyo and the others hear it. This shout. Boom. Flames erupted. Old Zhou seemed to be very irritable. Where is Mount Tai? Where? Previously, he had heard it in his head on the first level, so the explosion on the first level was very powerful. Now that he was on the second level, old Zhou's lingering will seemed to sense that Mount Tai was on the second level, and he instantly became extremely furious. The mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. Flames rose. The entire realm instantly turned into a sea of fire. Large amounts of lava spewed out, and it was as if his blood vessels were about to explode. Mount Tai was on his neck. It was riding on his neck. This was probably old Zhou's idea. The remnant will was very stupid. Only some of the will existed, and nothing else existed. At this moment, the flames on the second level erupted and rumbled non-stop. It shook the entire area. In the distance, someone rose into the air and let out a miserable cry. In an instant, they turned into flames and burned into nothingness. Xia Huyo and the others looked at Suyu one after another. Xia Huyo could not help but swallow his saliva. Our people might also be here. Suyu, you're killing indiscriminately. Suyu smiled and said, it has nothing to do with me. It's just a natural eruption. As for our people on the second floor, are my teacher and the others on the second floor? There probably aren't many humans. If the people on the first floor had already come up, then the humans on the second floor would be ostracized. Under normal circumstances, they would have to team up and run away. This was Suyu's judgment. Those who didn't leave wouldn't be weak. Since that was the case, there was a high probability that they wouldn't die. Moreover, he wasn't a nanny, so how could he care about everything? Suyu felt much better after hearing that. Not bad, the second floor also had an effect. His blood vessels exploded, and flames rose. It was pretty good. Some of them died this time, right? What a waste. Suyu suddenly said. He couldn't shout anymore. Since they were already dead, where was he going to collect their corpses? He still had to collect their corpses in a civilized manner. Don't kill some civilized masters. I was planning to rely on them to perfect my divine aperture. On the second floor, the treasure is not important. The key is to kill people, collect their bodies, extract their blood, and perfect my God's aperture. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 25-29, Chapter 25-29, Chapter 543, Wherever You Go, You Die 5. Chapter 25-29, Chapter 543, Wherever You Go, You Die 5. As Suyu reached the second floor, he killed 7 people and shouted. Another 20 to 30 unlucky people were instantly burned by the spewing flames and lava. The number of people fell below 3,000. The second floor. At a place where flames were rising. Dao Qing sighed and the divine text in his hand surrounded him. After a moment, he said, let's go to the third floor. The trouble on the second floor is here. I'm afraid that a great catastrophe has appeared on the first floor. It's coming to the second floor. Beside him, Xian Wuji frowned and said, Dao Qing, are you sure that it's a calamity and not a natural change? Dao Qing said solemnly, it's man-made. I wasn't sure before, but now I'm 100% sure. When there was a change on the first level, there was a change on the second level, but it wasn't that serious. Now, the sudden change on the second level is definitely not a simple natural change. I calculated. The omen. Let's go. We can't stay here any longer. Otherwise, we'll all die. It's best if we can go up to the 7th floor and seek protection. This exploration is extremely dangerous. Xian Wuji frowned and nodded. He still had some faith in this. He said in a low voice, but... He glanced at a small blood-red tree that could be vaguely seen in the flames in front of him. He exhaled and said, then should we give up this dragon blood fruit tree? This tree is even bigger and older than the one that fell out last time. As long as we disperse the blood and fire on the outside, we'll be able to get it. Let's go. Dao Qing said softly, it will take at least 3 days to get rid of this fire. 3 days was not long. If they could disperse the fire and take this dragon blood fruit tree that was even older and sell it to the dragon clan, it would at least be worth a load. This tree was even stronger and older than the one from last time. The key was that 3 days, there were too many changes. Xian Wuji was actually a little reluctant. Some of the immortals around him were also reluctant. Someone's eyes flickered as he said, then Dao Qing, you guys can leave first. We will stay behind. We will meet up with you guys after we get what we want. Dao Qing knew that they were reluctant to part with it, so how could he be willing to give it up? He was about to get it. This was also the supreme treasure that they had found on the second floor. His grandfather was now lacking a carrier. After getting this item, everything would be worth it. However, the divine runes on his fingers swirled again. And with a bang, the divine runes split open. Dao Cheng's face turned pale. It was extremely dangerous. It was incomparably dangerous, even more dangerous than before. 3 days. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to survive even 1 day. Then you can do whatever you want. I've already said that this place is extremely dangerous. I don't want to waste any more time. Dao Cheng didn't say anything else. He quickly flew off in a certain direction. Retreat. He could sense the danger of death. Seeing that he had left, Xian Wuji frowned slightly. After some thought, he also flew off. As soon as they left, one of the remaining immortals, an expert from the mountain and sea realm, he sneered and said, Dao Cheng is getting more and more cowardly. Ever since Zhou Xian was killed, he was scared out of his wits by Su Yu, and from then on, he couldn't do it anymore. Don't think that he's still on the heaven roll, but in my opinion, he doesn't deserve to be on the heaven roll with his boldness. A fairy chuckled and said, that's because he values love. Zhou Xian was killed, and he felt bad about it, so he went a bit crazy. It's actually pretty good. Then you'll marry him? That's only if he takes a fancy to me. The dozen or so immortals teased each other. As for the eruption of lava earlier, they weren't too worried now that it had stopped. This wasn't the first time that the Starry Manor had erupted. It had been going on since yesterday. At this moment, everyone looked at the dragon blood fruit tree in the flames. There were still many fruits hanging on it, the mountain and sea immortal said with some envy, it's really good stuff. Unfortunately, it doesn't match well with the immortals. However, I don't think there's a need to change this thing. The tree itself can be used as a carrier. The fruits were also treasures, but they didn't match well with them. It didn't matter. As long as the tree could be used, it was fine. This might have been exposed because there had been too much strange activity recently. Otherwise, the people in front of them would have discovered it long ago, and it wouldn't have been their turn. This was a fortuitous opportunity. Dao Cheng and Xian Wuji had actually run away. They were truly magnanimous. It was good that they had run away. Otherwise, with these two around, it wouldn't have been easy for them to distribute. The fairy who had spoken earlier smiled and said, Gu Zhu, now that we have the item, you have to give us some. You can't keep it all for yourself. You have the bloodline of an immortal emperor, and your status is noble. If you want to eat meat, you have to give us some soup, right? Gu Zhu was also from the mountain and sea immortal race. He immediately said with a smile, don't worry. It's just a vessel. It's not the point for my ancient immortal race to give up all our glory for this. I'm not Dao Cheng. Dao Cheng's grandfather is in urgent need of this. As he said that, Gu Zhu quickly said, all right, let's not waste any more time. Dao Cheng's divination is said to be a great calamity. Although we cannot completely believe it, we cannot not believe it at all. There have been many changes recently. Be careful. Quickly take out this treasure and we will leave the second level immediately. The group of immortals quickly began to set up their formation. They sent out their Yuan Qi to suppress the flames outside the ancient tree. Without Xian Wuji and Dao Cheng's help, it would take at least 3 to 4 days. Everyone was actually a little worried that these two had escaped. However, they really could not suppress the greed in their hearts. It was too valuable. A vessel was a supreme treasure to anyone. They were not Suyu, so the vessel in their hands could be calculated with their hands. In the distance, Dao Cheng flew quickly. Xian Wuji quickly caught up and asked in a deep voice, is it really dangerous? Yes. Otherwise, I will definitely take that ancient tree. My grandfather needs it. Dao Cheng said in a deep voice, walk faster. That Gu Zhu is over there. Dao Qing said indifferently, it's okay. Let him test the water. After all, he has the bloodline of an immortal emperor. There might be an invincible essence blood in his body. If he is dead, it will be a great disaster. Don't stay on the 3rd floor. Go directly to the 7th floor. After saying that, a hair appeared in his hand, and it twirled around his fingers. He said in a deep voice, this is Gu Zhu's hair. Once this hair burns, Gu Zhu will die. Let's run away from this damn place as soon as possible. When did you get it? Xian Wuji was surprised. Cultivators valued their hair and blood very much, so they wouldn't easily let it out. When the situation changed, Dao Qing said casually and calmly, let's go. Don't think too much. I don't know how to curse, and it's useless even if I do. It's not that easy to curse a mountain and sea to death. Xian Wuji didn't say anything else, but he was a little more careful in his heart. It was better to be careful when working with Dao Qing. This guy's strength was not as good as his, but since he was almost killed by Su Yu, his entire person had become much gloomier. Now, it was difficult for him to see what Dao Qing was thinking. Very soon, the two of them flew to the entrance of the 2nd floor that led to the 3rd floor. At this moment, Su Yu was also strolling leisurely in the air. Very soon, he also had a look of surprise on his face as he looked into the distance. Was that a treasure? Dragon blood fruit tree. A dragon blood fruit tree that was even bigger than the one he had obtained previously. This is a tree that grows out of blood vessels. Does it count as a hair? Su Yu didn't know whether it counted or not. Many of the things in Xingyu Mansion were related to the human body. However, there were also some things that were planted by later generations. Not all of them were born naturally. At this moment, he finally understood how the dragon blood fruit tree grew. It was rooted in the blood vessel and absorbed some of the blood energy to grow. No wonder it was treated as a precious treasure. Dragon blood fruit tree, nonsense, this must be called the old Zhou fruit tree. Su Yu glanced at the immortals on the outer perimeter. There were 15 of them, and 4 of them were from the mountain and sea realm. The remaining ones were all Ling Yun, and they weren't weak. A divine light flashed in his eyes as he looked at those people again. Very quickly, he was speechless. The tribulation, divine script actually jumped. That was because the leader of the 7th level of the mountain and sea realm actually had a drop of incomparably resplendent blood essence in his body. Su Yu felt his teeth ache. Damn, which family's descendant was this? What a huge sum of money. This was an invincible blood essence. Of course, this was a method of mutual destruction, but it was still terrifying. If the other party were to burn his blood essence at a critical moment, even the sun and moon would have to flee. It was a feeling that he couldn't afford to offend the other party. Invincible blood essence, even ordinary invincible experts wouldn't spend so much money on this. Could it be from the Qinggu clan? Su Yu was speechless. He suspected that he had met someone from the Qinggu clan. He wasn't familiar with them, but he had never seen them before. He didn't know if they were on the heaven hunting list or if it was his first time coming out of the immortal world. In short, at this moment, Su Yu's interest was instantly piqued. He could be considered a big shot. His bloodline must be very good. Once it was integrated into his book. TSK. Su Yu was delighted. It would definitely increase the power of many books. P.S. Today is my birthday. It's the 9th day of July. I'm finally 18 years old. I'm finally an adult. It's so sad. I want to go out tonight, forget it. I'll go out again after writing the 3rd chapter. It's so sad. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2530, Chapter 2530, Chapter 544 River Map is here. Run. Chapter 2530, Chapter 544 River Map is here. Run. The Immortals. Tian-gu has issued an order to kill me. Suyu chuckled and looked around. This guy wasn't weak. He was at the 7th level of the mountain and sea realm, and he had the invincible essence blood. If he had the bloodline of Tian-gu, then his bloodline power wasn't weak at all. No matter what, he was still an expert. It was difficult to kill him, but it wasn't that difficult. He just had to be careful. As long as the other party exploded that invincible essence blood, he didn't know where he got it from. Just as he was thinking, he heard the distant immortal talking to someone. That guy Dao Cheng ran so fast that I forgot to tell him. Bai Feng and the others ran to the 3rd floor. Anyone who has anything to do with Suyu will die. I wonder if they'll wait for us on the 3rd floor, and then join forces to kill Bai Feng and the others. Dao Cheng. Suyu was slightly startled and ran away. So strange. This guy felt that his luck was not bad. Really, Suyu had wanted to slap him to death for a long time. Several times, he had not found an opportunity. Or rather, when there was an opportunity, he did not deal with him. The last time, he dealt with Zhan Wushuang. He subconsciously went to deal with Zhan Wushuang and forced the godly race experts to chase after him instead of Dao Cheng. This guy was just here. Suyu frowned slightly. Dao Cheng had survived several times, but this time, he had to be killed. He was not afraid of the enemy being strong, but he was afraid that the enemy was a cockroach. If he had not died all this time, it meant that he was very strange. He might even be in danger. 3 layers, okay, I'll sweep layer by layer. I'll kill you later. Dao Cheng had to die. This time, Suyu set a small target for himself. Before he came, Dao Cheng had actually run away. This meant that he had sensed danger, and was quite sharp. Kill them first. Suyu tossed the book into the air. It wasn't difficult to kill them. If he shouted, "Mountain Tai," again, it would explode. These guys would definitely panic and take the opportunity to kill the 7th level of the mountain and sea realm. The others wouldn't be able to escape. Mount Tai. I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you. In Suyu's mind, old Zhou was completely enraged. He was mad, he was mad. He was filled with resentment. Mount Tai again. He wanted to destroy all of this, to destroy Mount Tai. Boom! Near the dragon blood fruit tree, flames began to burn. The power of the flames caused more than 10 immortals to be injured. Gu Zhu's face fell, and he shouted, "Retreat." Just as he finished speaking, his expression suddenly changed. Danger. He turned his head to look, but there was nothing. However, a person suddenly appeared in the air. Without saying anything, he clawed at his heart. You. Gu Zhu was shocked. Just as he was about to counterattack and retreat, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his head. He was hit by an invisible hammer, which caused his sea of consciousness to shake. A drop of blood essence was grabbed by Suyu. Sizzling sounds could be heard. The invincible blood essence was struggling and roaring. It instantly burned Suyu's arm. Gu Zhu and the others had the invincible blood essence. They had been tamed by the elders, or they were the elders' own blood essence. But Suyu was the enemy. At this moment, the blood essence took the initiative to burst out with a powerful force and burned Suyu's arm. Suyu's body was extremely strong, but at this moment, his flesh and blood were burned. All of a sudden, his blood began to boil and his flesh and blood disappeared. His bones also began to burn. Suyu was in extreme pain. He gritted his teeth and let out a low cry. A book fell and dozens of sun and moon beasts appeared, instantly devouring the other immortals. Soon, dozens of sun and moon beasts began to press down on the invincible blood essence. At this moment, a human figure was faintly discernible on top of the invincible blood essence, as if it was about to come out. "How dare you!" A voice actually came out from within the blood essence, berating those 10,000 clan phantoms. At this moment, those phantoms actually felt some fear, and they all paused for a moment. This pause caused Su Yu's expression to immediately change, and he angrily said, "Bastard! What use was there in having you all? Some of the dead blood essence phantoms, you actually didn't listen to me, and you still know how to be afraid? Damn it!" In Su Yu's rage, the word "civilized" suddenly appeared. With a rumble, it exploded those few stagnant projections. More projections appeared. This time, they were no longer afraid. Nearly 100 sun and moon projections appeared, roaring. They suppressed that drop of blood essence and tore it apart. And Gu Zhu was still alive at this moment. Under the drastic change in his gaze, he looked at Su Yu in disbelief. He opened his mouth and shouted, "Su." Pft. Su Yu flipped his hand and slashed his head off. The book appeared and swallowed him in an instant. As for Su Yu, he used all his strength to deal with that drop of blood essence. A large amount of Emperor's saliva appeared and covered his entire body, allowing the invincible blood essence to burn him. He refused to let go no matter what. "I don't believe it. Su Yu, can't deal with the invincible blood essence, and I can't even deal with a drop of the invincible blood essence. What a joke. Today, I must suppress you." In his anger, Su Yu suddenly threw a backhand punch, which caused an angry shout to come from the essence blood, "How dare you! The owner of this essence blood might still be alive." Su Yu suspected that this was the elder of the guy who was killed. He didn't know if it was Tian Gu. The probability was high, but he didn't feel that kind of absolute suffocation. "How dare your ancestor!" Su Yu roared angrily and punched out one punch after another. Rumble. Dozens of sun and moon shadows suppressed this drop of blood essence. At this moment, the appearance of a middle-aged man appeared on the blood essence. He was faintly discernible and also extremely angry. He shouted, "How dare you! Damn it, you only know this sentence." Su Yu was furious. Who was he looking down on? Bite him to death. Dozens of shadows instantly increased to more than 100. One by one, the sun and moon beasts instantly bit him. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2531, Chapter 2531, Chapter 544 River Map is here, run. Kjo subscribe, 2. Chapter 2531, Chapter 544 River Map is here, run. Kjo subscribe, 2. As for Su Yu, he also took the opportunity to erupt once again, using both his fists and legs, swords, spears, halberds, and the 5 elements cage. He actually fought with a drop of blood, and, if he didn't have Wen Mingji's help and didn't open his yang aperture, he might not even be able to fight against this drop of blood. This was the real shame. No, it was also terrifying. This invincible body was definitely not weak. At the same time, in the immortal world, an invincible body suddenly rose up from his seclusion. His expression changed slightly as he looked in a certain direction. Very quickly, he opened the space-time tunnel and soon, he arrived at the entrance of the realm. Patriarch. At the entrance of the realm, Tian Gu was still there. The middle-aged man's expression changed as he said, "Patriarch, Gu Zhu seems to be dead." Tian Gu didn't say anything. He nodded slightly. So what if he was dead? He didn't have many descendants of the first generation. There were only a few. Most of them had died of old age. Or they had been killed in the previous era. This middle-aged man could be considered the 5th generation. Gu Zhu could be considered the 7th generation. He had many descendants of the 7th generation. He had lived for too long, so he did not care if someone died. However, his expression suddenly changed slightly. He looked at the middle-aged man and said coldly, "How dare you? You gave him your own blood essence." B****. He suddenly felt that something was wrong. So what if a descendant died? Why did he need this fellow to personally come out from seclusion to report to him? He took a closer look and saw that his chi and blood were somewhat declining. He immediately said angrily, "B****. Elder ancestor, I." Tian Gu replied coldly, "Even if you wish to snatch the 9-leafed sky lotus, you shouldn't have given your blood essence to a descendant. Even if you were to snatch it personally, it would still be more reliable than that. Bastard, you're still alive. If someone were to snatch your blood essence, you'll be in big trouble. In the myriad realms, it was best for one's blood essence not to leak out while alive. Blood essence was too important. The other party had too many tricks up his sleeves to deal with one. Even if you were to soar into the air, you would not easily leak your blood essence out. Furthermore, you were invincible. Was your descendant an idiot? No matter how reliable your descendant was, no matter how much you loved him, could he ensure that your blood essence would not leak out? Idiot. The middle-aged man's face was slightly pale. He lowered his head and said, "Patriarch, I just want him to help me." Idiot. Tian Gu harumphed coldly. "Don't go out for the time being. Otherwise, others might notice something. Your blood essence might have self-destructed. When the manor closes, you should sense it. If it's not destroyed, I'll think of a way to get it back for you." This descendant was still very powerful. It was a pity that he was too confident. Why did he think that no one would dare to kill his descendant? This time, he was in big trouble. It would be fine if it was taken away by someone else, but if it was taken away by someone who had a way to deal with the invincible, nonsense. Anyone who could kill someone who had the invincible essence blood on him was no weakling, and no one had no background. Tian Gu was a little angry, but he soon regained his calm. "Can you still sense the existence of the essence blood now?" The middle-aged man lowered his head and said, "No, I can't sense it since I entered. But just now, it seems to have triggered the seal on my essence blood. I want to see if the passage of Gu Zhu has been broken." Tian Gu closed his eyes. On the other side of the sea of stars, a faintly discernible willpower overflowed over. Gu Zhu's passage had been broken. It wasn't just him. There were also many immortals who had been broken. Soon, Tian Gu had an idea. He looked at the middle-aged man and said coldly, "He's dead." The middle-aged man's expression was ugly. He was really dead. It would have been fine if his blood essence had been destroyed by itself, but it had been taken away. It was really troublesome. Outside the starry manor, a group of people fell silent. More than 10 immortal passages had been cut off in an instant. Was the immortal race in trouble? Of course, there weren't any major figures among them. Gu Zhu was one of the more well-known ones. He was a descendant of the heavenly Gu clan, a member of the ancient immortal clan. However, most people didn't know anything. There was no invincible blood essence. It would have been fine if Gu Zhu had died. However, the Tao King's lips curled up slightly. He snorted coldly in his heart. Gu Zhu had died. This kid seemed to have carried someone's blood essence with him. Not bad. It was good that he had destroyed a drop of blood essence, but it was still snatched away by someone else. It was better to see someone else's misfortune than his own. "Suppress him for me." With an angry shout, Suyu punched out once again. With a boom, the phantom exploded, and an extremely powerful drop of blood essence stopped spinning in the air. The little bit of consciousness inside had been completely destroyed by him. Suyu heaved a sigh of relief. Even so, the blood essence was still extremely powerful. Suyu didn't waste any more words. The sun and moon phantoms all wrapped around the invincible blood essence, and in the blink of an eye, they suppressed the blood essence into the book. Suyu wiped the sweat off his forehead. Damn, it was quite difficult to deal with. He almost capsized. Fortunately, I was smart enough to kill this guy in the first place. Otherwise, once this immortal controlled the blood essence to self-destruct, you would be in big trouble. How terrifying. Invincible, it was just a drop of blood essence. He had almost never fought it before. Suyu gritted his teeth. How embarrassing. Am I that weak? At this moment, a few people flew over. Xia Huyo and the others had strange expressions on their faces. At this moment, Huang Jiu no longer had any dissatisfaction. He said with a face full of shock, "This is, the invincible blood essence of the living." Suyu said snappily, "Nonsense, don't tell me it's still dead. The dead aren't that terrifying. I already have the invincible blood essence of the dead." Huang Jiu opened his mouth and was speechless for a long while. He had it. He actually had an invincible essence blood. Xia Huyo was also extremely stunned as he said, You have it?" Suyu said in a speechless manner, "Why, can't I have it? Last time, quite a few invincible people died in the human realm. Manor Head Zhu killed quite a few of them. One of them died and left behind a drop of essence blood. The person died, but the power of the essence blood was not small. I kept it and did not move." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2532, Chapter 2532, Chapter 544 River Map is here. Run, 3. Chapter 2532, Chapter 544 River Map is here. Run, 3. He was not afraid of being found out. Now that he had obtained another drop, everyone had seen it. When Mingji was so strong, everyone had seen it. What was there to be afraid of? He had 2 drops of invincible essence blood. Of course, they were not from the same race. They were from the celestial race, the celestial race's fire thorn god king's essence blood. The celestial race's invincible blood essence. Suyu muttered in his heart. Zhu Tiandao seemed to have the immortal king's corpse. Should he ask him for a drop of blood essence later? Exchange the fire thorn blood essence for him? Suyu would need to use the invincible blood essence sooner or later. The first drop was to open the invincible page of the Golden Atlas. He did not need to open the cultivation technique anymore. Suyu knew it, so if he wanted to unleash invincible combat strength, he needed at least one more drop. He shook his head and did not think about it anymore. Moreover, this expedition was not over yet. There might still be some gains. At this moment, Xia Huyo hurriedly said, "That is the living invincible essence blood." Suyu, this. Suyu smiled and said, "I know what you mean. I do not know how to curse. If I did, I would also curse that I cannot kill an invincible one. I might be able to deal with him if I hand it over to some half-emperors or other powerful clans. However, there is a high probability that he is a descendant of Tiangu. Ordinary people would not dare to deal with him." Xia Huyo hurriedly said, "The human clan would dare." Suyu said indifferently, "We'll see. It's my own." It's still possible for the human clan to exchange their invincible essence blood for it. Otherwise, there's no hope. One don't care if you can deal with him or not. If I can't do it now, I'll be able to do it sooner or later. I won't give you the essence blood. Xia Huyo didn't say anything more when he heard Suyu's words. He said with a bit of a toothache, "That weapon of yours is too powerful. So many sun and moon projections and the invincible essence blood have been suppressed. Did you forge it yourself? It's too powerful." It was ridiculously powerful. Suyu chuckled and said, "It's all right. It's just that there are some trash. They're already dead, yet they're still afraid of the immortals. Su Yu was also speechless. It was a natural fear. Even if they were dead, they had already become projections of Su Yu's weapon, yet they were still frightened by the other party. This was too embarrassing. Su Yu decided that those trash races that had stopped earlier, he would go back and clean them up properly. He had almost ruined his own business. At this moment, his body was covered in Emperor's saliva, and his injuries were gradually recovering. Su Yu exhaled and no longer cared about those immortals. He collected all the corpses, and the page on the immortals became stronger and stronger. The immortal blood essence that he had absorbed previously was only at the first level of the Sun-Moon realm. This time, it was already at the second level of the Sun-Moon realm. The invincible blood essence was not integrated into the tree. The corpse was not taken away, and the person was still alive. What was there to integrate into the tree? Su Yu would use the book seal to suppress it first. He would decide when the time came. At this moment, Su Yu looked at the dragon blood fruit tree and smiled. The explosion just now had caused the surrounding flames to spew out. Now that old Zhou's anger had subsided, the flames were much weaker. In fact, if they did not weaken, it would not have much of an impact on Su Yu. In the next moment, Su Yu turned into a burning man and walked into the flames. Another great harvest. A drop of invincible essence blood and a dragon blood fruit tree. Both were pretty good. I'll accept them with a smile. There might still be some good stuff on the second floor, especially this lava. If it was real blood, I might be able to collect some. At this moment, the ground in the distance slightly shook. A person quickly escaped. Floating earth spirit. Terrifying. At this moment, the floating earth spirit cursed in his heart. F***CK. Was that Su Yu? He didn't know, and he didn't dare to get close. However, the battle had just stopped, and Su Yu had turned into a burning man and walked into the flames. This made the floating earth spirit instantly realize that he might have met Su. F***CK. He really came in. Originally, he had wanted to take the chestnuts from the fire. He had also taken a fancy to the dragon blood fruit tree. He was just waiting for the immortals to be exhausted, so he would take it and turn into a burning man to take it. However, at this moment, the floating earth spirit no longer had any thoughts. A change in the first level, a change in the second level, maybe it's all him. The floating earth spirit only took a glance across the sky. He was actually not sure if it was Su Yu. It did not matter. Just treat him as Su Yu. That was the right thing to do. Run. That fellow was too terrifying. To the floating earth spirit, he was not afraid of the strong. The strong were not scary. Sometimes, the strong were unlucky and could not kill him. However, for a person like Su Yu who was blessed with good luck, it was very easy for him to be killed. Go to the third floor. No, go to the seventh floor. The floating earth spirit gritted his teeth. Go to the third floor. The third floor was too dangerous. Go to the seventh floor, at least there was a group of invincible people there. If he kept a low profile and did not go to the nine-leafed heavenly lotus, there would not be much danger. Wait until Su Yu finishes sweeping the floor that he can sweep, then I will think of a way to come down. The floating earth spirit quickly fled. Not long after, he appeared at the entrance of a tunnel. Without looking back, he disappeared in the blink of an eye. At the same time, on the third floor, Dao Cheng's face changed slightly. Beside him, Xian Wuji was also shocked. The hair on Dao Cheng's hand had been completely burned. He's dead. Dao Cheng was calm. I told him that it was extremely dangerous. He didn't believe me. He's dead. I think that the person who killed him must be at least at the fifth level of the Sun-Moon realm or above. Xian Wuji frowned and said, that's impossible. How can someone at the 5th level of the Sun-Moon realm appear on the 1st and 2nd floor? As long as you're young enough. Dao Qing quickly walked toward the entrance of the 4th floor. As he walked, he said, "Don't forget, there's one person who can do it. Su Yu. Let's go. Don't linger on the 3rd floor. But the Immortal Clan has ordered us to kill Bai Feng and the others. You go." Dao Qing did not even turn his head and said, "Danger is coming. I don't know if it's Su Yu. Even if it's not, the danger is approaching us. If we're entangled with Bai Feng and the others for too long, we'll definitely die." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2533, Chapter 2533, Chapter 544 River Map had arrived. Run, 4. Chapter 2533, Chapter 544 River Map had arrived. Run, 4. Then, he said, the Order of the Celestials is only on the outside. This is inside the Starry Mansion. Anyway, he had sensed a great danger. He didn't want to die, so he went up immediately. So far, we've found almost nothing. There will be a chance if we go up. Dao Qing didn't want to say anything more. Xian Wuji hesitated for a moment before nodding his head. In the past, he didn't pay much attention to Dao Qing. But now, he was paying more and more attention to him. This fellow was really good at divination and could avoid some dangers. At the very least, his ability to save his life wasn't small. On the 2nd floor, 40 to 50 people had died in just a short while after Su Yu entered. At this moment, Su Yu had also taken the dragon blood fruit tree. He was in a good mood. However, very soon, Su Yu frowned slightly. The tribulation word suddenly jumped. What was going on? Strange. The 2nd floor still posed a threat to me. PM so strong. Is there anyone on the 2nd floor who can beat me? Just as Su Yu was thinking about this. The 1st floor. Near the space between his eyebrows. Behind he too, there were more than 10 dead souls. They were the remnants of the 1st floor. He too looked at the vortex at his glabella aperture and smiled. Something happened on the 2nd floor. Interesting. The 1st floor was swept clean. Unfortunately. There are only more than 10 dead souls. However, they are all talented. Perhaps a batch of powerful dead souls will be born soon. Those who were able to survive in such a harsh environment were all geniuses. Unfortunately. Su Yu first swept the entire floor, then the river map. This was the scariest part. Sweeping the entire floor without any blind spots. The 1st floor had become a land of death. There was no one left. At this moment, outside the Starry Manor, everyone was very quiet. The Life Emperor's prophecy seemed to be coming true. 2,900 people. This was the number of survivors. Each race had suffered heavy losses. Even the human race had suffered heavy losses. Adding on the special passage quota, the human race had lost more than 450 people, and now, 40 to 50 people had died. The immortal race had suffered the greatest losses. More than 600 people had died, and more than 100 had died. The powerful immortal race had suffered even greater losses than the human race, and more than half of the human race had died under the siege of the various races. 2 days had almost passed. The 3rd day was about to begin. The number of people was still decreasing. The upper echelon experts might not even know what was happening below. Up until now, most of them had died under the sun and moon. The unrivaled experts all had solemn expressions, but there was nothing they could do. They couldn't enter. Even if they entered, it might not be of any use. There were still more than 20 unrivaled experts inside. On the 2nd floor. Su Yu frowned. The calamity divine text was still throbbing. He would not be careless about the strange movement of this divine text. This divine text was incomparably mysterious. Su Yu had relied on this divine text many times to save his life. Su Yu frowned and suddenly said, "You guys go to the third floor first. Huang Jiu, don't even think about running. Harry Ball will follow her first. You guys go to the third floor to look for my master and Wu Lan and the others. They are probably at the Milky Way sand side," Xia Huyo said in surprise. "We'll go first. Hurry up and leave." Su Yu said in a low voice, "One have a bad feeling about this. What kind of joke is this? You are the biggest bad feeling." Xia Huyo thought that Su Yu was teasing him. Just as he was about to tease him, Su Yu said in a low voice, "Go. Hurry up. I feel like something is coming up. It's coming up from the first floor." "No way. What about you?" "I'll wait and see." Su Yu exhaled and said, "I'll also go to the entrance of the passage. If there's trouble, I'll also leave quickly. You go to the third floor first and find my master and the others. If I'm late, immediately tell them to go to the entrance of the fourth floor." The calamity divine text was jumping more and more fiercely. Xia Huyo also frowned when he saw Su Yu's grave expression. Then, there are still some humans on the second floor. Should I go and inform them? Su Yu frowned and quickly said, "As you wish. Just tell them. If there is danger, you can leave or not." "I know." Xia Huyo did not say anything more. He still believed in Su Yu. Su Yu said that there might be danger, and there really might be great danger. Just as he was about to leave, Huang Jiu suddenly said, "I will keep it a secret for you. Take that thing away." Su Yu's gaze was cold and stern. "You don't have the right to bargain with me. Protect them well, or else, I will eat you." Huang Jiu's heart turned cold. In his mind, little Harry Ball also said excitedly, "Don't be afraid. If you fight with him, he won't dare to take care of you. I don't want to be separated from Xiangxiang. If you continue, Xiangxiang will definitely let me eat your sea of consciousness, so I won't leave." Huang Jiu took a deep breath and didn't say anything else. He silently left with Xia Huyo and the others. Little Harry Ball was extremely depressed. He sent a voice transmission to Su Yu, "Xiangxiang, how long will it take you to come up? If PM not with you for a minute, I'll miss you." Although it was not in Su Yu's mind right now, they were together. Now that they were going to be separated, one on the third floor and the other on the second floor, it meant that they were separated by a world. It was too uncomfortable. Su Yu was a little speechless. His anger from earlier had dissipated quite a bit. He transmitted his voice, "Stop talking nonsense. Keep an eye on her. It's best if you find my master Lu and verify her identity. If her identity isn't right, you can directly eat her sea of consciousness." "All right." The little furball was excited. This could be done. It was best if it wasn't. After eating, it would be done. Of course, it was fine if it was. He could just throw it to Lu Wenyan. The little furball was too reluctant to part with Su Yu. A day apart was like 3 years apart. The few of them quickly disappeared. Su Yu no longer cared about them. As for whether or not they informed the others, Su Yu didn't care. He just cared about himself. As for the few great demons that had left the ancient city, he didn't know where they were. He didn't even see them. He didn't know if they had died. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2534, Chapter 2534, Chapter 544 River Map was here, run. 5. Chapter 2534, Chapter 544 River Map was here, run. 5. The second floor is filled with blood vessels, but there's nothing important about the neck. The danger is approaching, I have to see what kind of danger would make me feel danger. Suyu felt a little strange, really strange. It seemed to have come from the first floor, as if the danger was following him from behind. It seemed to have happened before, but it was very faint. When he left the first floor, the God tribulation word jumped for a moment, but it disappeared in a flash. Suyu didn't pay it any attention. At that time, he was just teleporting. But now, it seemed to be continuing. This meant that the crisis was approaching. Suyu let out a breath, feeling somewhat depressed. Could it be that old Zhou is angered by me and wants to kill me with his head? Suyu cursed in his heart. Other than this, what else is there? I haven't searched the second floor yet. He didn't think any further and quickly flew towards the tunnel. If someone entered the third floor, he would be able to kill them immediately. If he encountered danger, he could also escape immediately. Suyu quickly flew towards the tunnel entrance. The tunnel entrance on the second floor wasn't here. Suyu roughly knew where it was. The middle of his neck was about there. Not long after, Suyu arrived at the entrance of the passageway. He arrived even faster than Xia Huyo and the others. Not long after he arrived, Xia Huyo and the others also arrived. Suyu flew into the void, but they didn't discover him. Only little hairy ball sensed that Suyu was nearby. However, he was in a hurry to leave, so he didn't greet him. There were a few more human cultivators besides Xia Huyo. He didn't know if it was all of them, or if only these few were willing to believe him and were in danger. Xia Huyo wasn't a saint either. He was too lazy to say anything since some people wouldn't listen to him. He reminded them once to fulfill his duty as a human. As for whether they would listen or not, it had nothing to do with him. Soon, these people disappeared through the passage. Suyu sensed for a while and realized that the passage wasn't opened casually. Without Ling Yun's strength, it was difficult to open the passage. This passage was like a lid. One had to put the lid on to open it to enter the third level. If nothing went wrong, it would be the same for the other levels. Without Ling Yun's ability, it was best for them to follow Ling Yun. Otherwise, they would not be able to leave even if they wanted to. When Suyu saw that they had left, he felt a lot more at ease. The tribulation divine script started beating again. It was not that strong, but it was continuous. As for Suyu, he didn't waste any more words. The book appeared and covered the entrance of the passageway, waiting for others to take the initiative to put in the book. Of the 301 pages, there were 300 pages with a mouth open, waiting to eat at any time. Not long after, a few experts from the small clans flew over and quickly flew into the sky. The giant beast projections also began to classify them. If they weren't of the same species, they would eat them. If they couldn't find the same species, they would also eat them. However, if they didn't merge, they would first store them in the space. After Suyu forged the pages belonging to this clan, he would then merge them in. Gradually, more and more storage rings appeared in Suyu's hands. Space couldn't be overlapped, so there were more and more storage rings. Suyu was too lazy to bring so many storage rings with him. Soon, a page of space in the book was opened by Suyu to store treasures. A moment later, the 1,000-meter long, 1,000-meter wide, and 1,000-meter tall cube was almost piled up. In front of Suyu, almost 300 storage rings had been lost. In other words, after Suyu entered, he had killed 300 of them by himself. Of course, many people had died indirectly because of him. There were all kinds of natural disasters and riots, and more than 100 people had died. What a killer! Suyu muttered. How ruthless! They were all geniuses from various clans. They weren't geniuses, and they wouldn't enter the Starry Manor. I seriously suspected that I had killed more than 50 geniuses on the heaven hunting list. Some people were swallowed by the book before he could even see their faces clearly. After swallowing so many people, Suyu actually didn't receive any rewards. There was no one else. Could it be that the rules also felt that killing them was too inhumane? Then, next time, should he find another way to kill them? Suyu continued to wait silently, hiding and keeping a low profile. There were still many people on the second level. If they still didn't come, he would continue to shout, "Mountain Tai." If he shouted a few more times, there would definitely be people who couldn't help but go up to the third level. I'll do the same on the next level. Blocking the exit is the best. Suyu was calculating in his heart. At this moment, his Calamity Divine text was jumping crazily. Suyu quickly activated the divine text, restraining his breath, remaining silent, enduring, and eliminating the sense of danger. He had to know what kind of thing would make him feel danger. The unknown danger was the most terrifying. Only when he knew the source of the danger would he be able to solve the problem. And at this moment, two extremely powerful auras of death instantly appeared in Suyu's senses. Suyu was greatly shocked. Holy shit! He knew that there was an undead passageway in the Starry Mansion, but when he asked before, it didn't seem to be at the bottom level, but at the upper level. Why would there be undead entering the first level? No, it wasn't an ordinary undead. Holy shit, this was the sovereign of the undead. As someone who interacted with the stars and moon every day, it was impossible for him not to know the quality of the sovereign of the undead's aura of death. At this moment, even if it was just a faint aura of death spreading over, Suyu could instantly sense it. There wasn't one undead sovereign, there were two. He knew all the sources of danger, they came from the undead. Suyu cursed in his heart. F***ck. It was over. The undead sovereign wasn't an ordinary undead. Otherwise, he could still reverse his disguise. However, the undead sovereign was intelligent. Unless he had an army of undead under him, if there was one more undead, did he think that others were blind? At this moment, miserable screams could be heard. In an instant, more than 100 people were escaping in the air. Undead. There are undead. No, impossible. There are undead coming up from below. At this moment, the people on the second floor were extremely shocked. All of a sudden, everyone understood why there was a crisis on the first floor. It was because there were undead appearing. The first floor was probably completely annihilated. Ha ha ha, there are so many creatures. I like it. A loud laugh spread in all directions, scaring everyone silly. The undead that could speak was finished. It was at the sovereign level. It was really over. And at this moment, Suyu's expression completely changed. Holy shit. I know the crisis. He too. It's he too. He remembered this voice. It was a very arrogant fellow. Suyu did not hesitate any longer. He instantly disappeared into the tunnel. He too had actually come from the first floor. What the hell? Before he left, Suyu had also recorded a video. Speaking of which. If PM fine, I can leave. I can even throw this murder pot at he too. He, a necromancer sovereign, actually ran in. If I don't throw it at him, no one will suspect me. At this moment, the fleeing Suyu was actually thinking of letting he too take the blame. In the distance, the laughing he too was slightly taken aback. Just a moment ago, he felt that someone was thinking of him and scheming against him. What was going on? I came from below. No one knows that I'm here, right? What the hell? He too was also slightly taken aback. Frowning, he turned his head to the side and stared blankly. Could it be that this fellow was thinking of scheming against him? You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 2535, Chapter 2535, Chapter 545 Undead Invasion. L. Chapter 2535, Chapter 545 Undead Invasion. L. At the entrance of the third floor, Suyu panted heavily, feeling a little scared. Damn, how did this guy enter from the first floor? Something was wrong. On the first floor, Suyu swept around, but he didn't find such a powerful undead. Besides, if he too had been there long ago, he would have killed Suyu if he saw him. Of course, he might not know Suyu, but he had heard Suyu's voice before. Besides, who was the one who killed the undead? The second floor is finished. Although Suyu had killed some people, he did not think of searching everywhere. He searched inch by inch and killed every single one he found. He was not that idle. He had seen it and met it. That was why he killed the other party. He was not like he too, who was slowly searching and killing people. He shouldn't have been on the first floor earlier. Perhaps, he only appeared after I left. With this thought in mind, Suyu swiftly dived into the void and vanished from the spot. What a fearsome fellow. He is an undead. How can he enter the first floor without a passageway? The passageway is on the 7th floor, unless he has already descended from the 7th floor, that's impossible. Even an undead has to abide by the rules. Then, he might have come here by other means. God's aperture. Suyu murmured in his heart. Ordinary people wouldn't think of it, but Suyu could think of it because he had such a question before. How could the white jade gate be opened? Now, he had some ideas. The dead spirit world. Suyu's eyes flickered. Yes, the dead spirit world. The dead spirit world might have a teleportation passage, which corresponded to the position of the god's aperture and the route of the god's aperture. In that case, he too was transported from the dead spirit world. It wasn't on the first floor before, but it might be underground. Suyu's eyes flickered. Hair. Below the first floor, there was a lower floor. Or a lower floor. Yes, that must be it. He came to a sudden realization. This news was too important to him. The map of the god's aperture. The map of the route of the god's aperture. Suyu took a deep breath. The world of the dead, the things were in the world of the dead. Suyu's eyes flashed with a divine light. This was an extremely important piece of information. This represented the future of his path as a civilized teacher. Open 360 God's apertures, open the Yin aperture, and open the Heaven aperture. Yin and Yang as one, primordial spirit as one. Dead soul world. He too's appearance provided him with an extremely important piece of information. Up till now, Suyu had only discovered 290 of the 360 divine apertures. He was still far from 360 divine apertures. The distribution of divine apertures was even more difficult to decipher than the origin aperture. Just like how the starry sky was bright and the distribution of big stars, this was still somewhat different from the origin aperture. In an instant, countless thoughts appeared in Suyu's mind. In the next moment, he quickly chased after the aura left behind by Harry Ball. He had to find the person and bring him away immediately. He too had come up at an unknown time. It was very dangerous. The third floor, in Suyu's line of sight, had magnificent waves and undulating peaks. This was probably old Zhou's chest. Where was the Milky Way sand region? Suyu had never been here before, but he had seen some simple maps before, but they might not be accurate. Milky Way sand, chest. Milky Way. Suyu flew through the air while thinking. After a long while, he grimaced. Don't tell me it's milk. It wasn't that serious. Old Zhou was a man, right? Could it be that a man also secreted milk? From the sound, it sounded like a man's voice. Could it be a woman? Not to the extent. A person was already dead, but he still disguised his voice. That was abnormal. Or is it the function of internal organs? It has a purifying effect. The Milky Way sand is such a product. Suyu made a judgment in his heart. The human body was special. Some organs had a purifying and repelling effect. He was not sure which part of the third floor was. The place was huge, and he needed to look for it himself. Then he would compare it again. Su Yu, who had been prepared to explore slowly, suddenly ran out of time. He didn't know how long the river map would stay on the second floor, and perhaps it would come up soon. He had to quickly take his people and run. At this moment, in front of a huge waterfall, hundreds of people were confronting each other. The heavenly river sand was important to any race, and the use of the heavenly river sand was actually first proposed by the human race. However, soon, all the races knew the secret, and some secrets would be spread widely. Then, it would no longer be a secret. The heavenly river sand that purified willpower was very important to civilized masters, and it was also very important to the combatants. The combatants also needed to raise their willpower to prevent the civilized masters from directly shattering their seas of willpower. And the heavenly river sand was also a treasure that everyone was fighting for in the lower 3 levels. The waterfall came from the sky, and this was what everyone called the heavenly river. It seemed to pour down from the sky, fall to the ground, and impact, forming some crystal clear sand grains. This was what everyone called the heavenly river sand. At this moment, there were experts from all the races here. The Milky Way sand was also a treasure that everyone could see. It didn't take too long to accumulate. Every 10 years, there would be a large amount of Milky Way sand formed during the trip to the Starry Palace. Human, the Milky Way sand isn't something you can covet. At this moment, a mountain and sea demon coldly berated. Around them, the dragon race, the immortal race, the god race, and the underworld race all looked at the human race. On the human side, there were also quite a few people. Both sides had gathered over 300 people. There were close to 100 humans, and more than 200 people from the other races. On the human side, the leader was Qin Fang, an expert on the heaven roll, as well as some geniuses from the other manners, such as Wuxia and Bai Feng. There were also a few mountain and sea realm experts among the humans, but all of them had solemn expressions on their faces. Ever since the battle over 50 years ago ended and Yi Batian died, the development of the entire human race had stagnated. There weren't many talented experts, and there were some gaps in the mountain sea realm.